Chapter 1. The Drowned Young Man. Haul it up. We'll be rich if you get it up. Amidst the surging waves, Han Fei was shouting excitedly against the wind on his boat. Who knows, we might know what lies in store in that map today. Han Fei was a gold digger on the sea. 7 years ago, he accidentally picked up an ancient treasure map while fishing. The map captivated him and told him that there was a great secret, possibly a medieval shipwreck, in the marked spot on the map. If he could claim the treasure, he would live the rest of his life without ever needing to worry about money. Han Fei craned his head at the sea. His boat had been surrounded by countless fish, including several hundred sharks, since it came here, or he would have dived in personally. Dong! Suddenly, a sailor shouted, "Not good, boss. Something is dragging us down. It's alive." Han Fei replied, "Alive my ass. How can anything be alive after hundreds of years?" Crack! An enormous force broke the keel of the boat, throwing Han Fei and company to the rails heavily. A sailor cried, "Hurry! Cut the rope!" Han Fei yelled with bloodshot eyes, "FK off! Pull it up! We're going to die anyway. I would rather take a look at the treasure before that." Han Fei knew that he was doomed after he heard the crack. So, he had turned completely crazy and was determined to see the treasure. Another sailor cursed, "FCKU, I'm here to make money, not to get myself killed." Caught by the unexpected danger, everybody was stunned. Waves were surging on the surface of the ocean. Han Fei, however, noticed none of it, only a shadow below the water. What was that? A round item several meters long rose to the surface. Why did it look like a strange calabash? As a professional fisherman, he knew the ocean as well as he knew his own house, and he was certain that it was not a calabash. After all, no calabashes could remain unrotten after being soaked in seawater for so many years. He believed that it was more likely to be a calabash-shaped wreck. An enormous force surged again and flipped the boat over. Han Fei fell into the ocean. However, an accident happened the next second. A thick pillar of water rose to the sky, and the boat was immediately elevated. Flying to the sky in the water pillar, Han Fei panicked. The most titanic fish head appeared in the water. He swore that he had never seen a fish as large. Its head alone was bigger than a boat. Even the largest blue whale couldn't compare to it. Despite his dizziness, Han Fei felt that something was pulling him into the ocean. He was both excited and scared when he thought of the blood-curdling behemoth down there. He saw a crab several meters long running to him when he was dying. Isn't it supposed to be a fish? Why is it a crab? Those were Han Fei's last thoughts. Who? Cough. Somebody was calling him as if from a distance. Han Fei, wake up. Brother, wake up. After spewing out he didn't know how much water, Han Fei finally woke up from unconsciousness. His head was aching and full of thousands of strange pictures and memories that did not belong to him. Opening his eyes, Han Fei gasped at the sky. A boundless ocean stretched out to the horizon, illuminated by a crimson sun that covered half of the sky. Scattered clouds dangled from the sky like long, uncombed hair. Hiss! Where the hell am I? What's that thing in the sky? Han Fei was appalled. The enormous fish a moment ago and the unbelievably large sun right now were surreal to him. However, they were not everything. Bam! After an explosion, a middle-aged man emerged from the water on a giant crab with a fishing pole in his hand. Han Fei was shocked. The crab floated on the surface, and the middle-aged man stood on top of it. As he stomped, ripples spread out on the ocean alongside an intimidating wind. The water splashed upward, and a fish broke out of it. The fish was 2 meters long, with fins that looked like wings. It also had greenish stones all over its body. Hiu! Suddenly, all the greenish stones on the fish darted toward the man. Crab King's pincers! The man roared and, lowering his body, threw out a punch. Immediately, a pincer shadow was pushed out, blowing up the fishing pole and the flying stones simultaneously. The 2-meter-long fish was cut into halves. One of the halves fell right before Han Fei. Han Fei's eyes bulged in shock. A middle-aged harumped, pulled by a green turtle into the ocean. You're daydreaming if you think you can pass the trial with such a performance. A young man next to Han Fei hurried to explain, Master Wang Jia, it was only because Han Fei's arm was hurt by a blade fish the other day. The middle-aged man waved his hand. No need to explain to me. The fish in the ocean do not listen to your reason. A level 2 fisher is as good as nothing. It was not until this moment that Han Fei realized he was lying on a strange boat. Dozens of similarly strange boats were strewn on the ocean nearby, and many children in strange clothes were standing on them. The children were all wearing tight clothes that looked like diving suits regardless of their gender, except that their clothes did not have oxygen tanks. Those children were also looking at him in disdain. Next second, when he saw his own hand, his eyes twitched. Huh, why is my hand so small? Have I transmigrated? A young man said in concern, it's all right as long as you're fine. Before Han Fei was able to ask, the middle-aged stepped out and landed on an empty boat in front of everyone. Then he spoke to the dozens of boats with a book in his hand. Zhang Qing, a level 4 fisher. Fishing result: a low-quality yellow fish. Lu Lingzi, a level 5 fisher. Fishing result: a mid-quality green turtle. Tang Jie, a level 7 fisher. Fishing result: a high-quality tentacle lobster. Everyone gasped in disbelief at the result. What? A tentacle lobster? How dare he? The tentacle lobster is known as the lobster of death. It's much more destructive than blade fish. He actually caught one. Some people said enviously, Tang Jie was only level 6 last month, but he's level 7 now. It's so fast. A girl put her fist on her chest and commented, wow. Tang Jie is so awesome. He's the genius of our school. He's almost certain to be a fishing master later. As people whispered to each other, Han Fei looked at the young man next to him, Tang Jie. I've transmigrated. Taking a deep breath, Han Fei recalled countless memories. Tang Jie, his great friend, was saved by his father 8 years ago and had been his close friend since. Pitifully, his father passed away in the unknown world beyond the level 3 fishery. Tang Jie had been taking care of him since then. Han Fei took another deep breath. He had assumed the body of a useless man who was drowned. However, this world seemed interesting. Right then, Wang Jia looked at Han Fei and said, Han Fei, a level 2 fisher, got nothing. Besides, Han Fei was the only person who was pulled into the ocean by a green turtle. He has failed the test. If he cannot pass the fishing trial a month from now, he will be expelled. Ha ha ha. Many people laughed, regarding Han Fei as a friend. A girl simply scolded, Han Fei, please stop wasting Tang Jie's cultivation resources. You're only holding him back. Infuriated, Tang Jie was about to argue with her, when Han Fei pulled his arm. Now that his memories had been assimilated, he would rather not keep lying there pretending to be dead. This world was strange, but as an adventurer who had fought pirates and sharks on the sea, Han Fei was not scared at all. Han Fei sneered, did I eat your yellow fish? It's none of your business. Everybody fell quiet instantly. Tang Jie looked at Han Fei in shock. Han Fei had been taciturn since his father left. He barely talked, much less talked back. The girl almost jumped up in fury, hoping to rip Han Fei's mouth apart with her fishing hook. At this moment, Hu Kun said cynically, hey, Han Fei. Take your time feeling good about yourself, but a month from now, you won't even be qualified to look up to us as a low-level fisher. What are you so proud of? Chapter 2. Demon Purification Pot. That's enough. Wang Jia roared, Tang Jie, bring him back. The fishing trial is only a month from now, and you are still bickering. Go back and train. This planet was covered in ocean, and human beings lived on mountains that floated in the sky. Everybody made a living by fishing. They could absorb the spiritual energy and marvelous power within the fish and become fishing masters, thereby reaching the peak of this world. The middle-aged man, Wang Jia, was precisely a fishing master. He taught in a school in Heavenly Water Village. He was also a part-time supervisor of the general fishery. The fishery below Han Fei's feet was the only general fishery of Heavenly Water Village. It was hardly risky, but some people died here almost every day. The ocean represented opportunities as well as danger. Even general fisheries had countless creatures that had natural-born combative techniques. Green turtles were covered in stones and fought with them when in danger. Blade fish had knives on their back and could dart the knives at the enemy. The pincers of the tentacle lobster were sharp enough to cut gold. It was said that in level 1 fisheries, there were fish that looked like swords. They had claimed too many lives. Of course, there were also shocking rumors. Some described the gigantic monsters in the unknown ocean, some mentioned the rare treasures at the bottom of the abyss, and some were about the undersea mermaids that had dominated the ocean for eons. However, Han Fei had never seen any of those in person, so he couldn't tell if the rumors were true. Tang Jie helped Han Fei get on an empty boat. Tang Jie said, "It's all right. That was just an accident. We still have time. You're going to pass the trial next time." Han Fei was about to say something, when he found himself flying. To be more exact, the boat was flying. Han Fei was meaning to ask why the boat could fly, but he found the answer in his head. This kind of boat was designed for fishing, and they were going to Heavenly Water Village, which was located on an island floating in the sky. Tang Jie asked worriedly, "Han Fei, are you all right? Were you unsettled under the sea?" "I'm fine. I just feel that everything is like a dream." Tang Jie had a nagging feeling that Han Fei had turned a little odd, but Han Fei responded that he was over his trauma, leading to a change in personality. Han Fei was reluctant to tell him that his brother had already died and someone else would live on in his body. While Han Fei was thinking, the boat passed through the clouds, allowing him to see the mountain floating in the sky. Countless boats were hanging off the cliff. Above, many boats were coming and going. Han Fei was too shocked by the extraordinary view to speak. It seemed to be a scene from legends. Although he had memories of it, his heart was still pounding after seeing it for real. Several minutes later, the boat landed on the ocean, ripples spreading. Everybody had to register here when they left for the ocean or returned. Most people had stock when they returned, and the merchants were waiting for them here, so this place was also the biggest trade center in the village. Everybody was smiling even though the stink of fish did not smell too good. After all, they could make good money out of it. Han Fei clicked his tongue when he saw the prosperous town and heard the noises. Was this Heavenly Water Village? As he recalled, Heavenly Water Village had 600,000 people, and it was just a village. How many villages and cities were out there in this world? How many people were living in the sky? For Han Fei, everything was too new. With Tang Jie leading the way, the two of them registered in the departure port and returned to their house. Han Fei's house was a shabby yard with a coverage of only some 20 square meters. Right behind the house was a bottomless cliff. His nearest neighbor was several hundred meters away. The house seemed to have been isolated. He looked behind the house and saw infinite clouds. Half of the sky was blocked by the enormous sun. The mist at sunset was enchanting. Tang Jie picked up a few big clams from the water tank in the house and pulled a bucket of water out of Han Fei's bed. "Han Fei, the clams are being boiled for you. Wait for me, I'll be back soon." Han Fei nodded with a smile. Clams were the most common food for the residents here. They were succulent and in huge supply, enough to keep most people fed despite their lack of spiritual energy. An hour passed. Han Fei was going to pour the clams and the soup out, but he was stunned after he lifted the pot cover, because he saw a series of data. Less than name greater than regular clam soup. Less than level greater than 1. Less than quality greater than regular. Less than spiritual energy greater than 24 points. Less than effect greater than this food can keep you from starving. Nothing more. Han Fei rubbed his eyes. Is it my talent? He took a deep breath. Tang Jie must be coming back soon. He'd better study it later. He found 2 pearls in the pot. Han Fei smiled casually. The mediocre pearls could be sold for 20 C coins. What could 20 C coins buy? 2 or 3 regular clams. There was absolutely nothing else in Han Fei's house. Soon, Tang Jie entered with a bowl of soup in his hand. The aroma of the food immediately filled the room. Han Fei grinned. "You're giving your swallowed spirit soup to me again." Looking at the soup in Tang Jie's hand, Han Fei's eyes twitched again. Less than name greater than swallowed spirit soup. Less than level greater than 8. Less than quality greater than regular. Less than spiritual energy greater than 48 points. Less than effect greater than training efficiency will be improved by 20% for 3 hours after this is taken. Han Fei swallowed. My whole pot of soup is not as effective as that tiny bowl. Swallowed spirit soup was made with the spirit-swallowing fish in the level 1 fishery. Such fish were not aggressive and could absorb natural spiritual energy. Their soup could fill people with spiritual energy. It was very helpful in cultivation. Tang Jie did not think it was a big deal. It's nothing. I can easily pass the trial. My soul will be awakened a month from now. Do you think I care about a bowl of swallowed spirit soup? Han Fei had heard about the trial too many times. As he recalled, everybody had to go through a fishing trial where elimination basically meant death when they were 12. Only one who survived and passed the trial could awaken their soul, acquire their spiritual beast, and fish in the level 1 fisheries. Otherwise, they could only live the rest of their life as a regular fisher. The fishing trial was only 1 month from now, and Han Fei could barely survive it. So, as the most distinguished genius, Tang Jie often gave his resources to Han Fei for Han Fei's cultivation. However, Han Fei's body was too unworthy. He was only a level 2 fisher today. Level 2 fishermen were essentially the ordinary people in this world. Few people were more untalented than him. Han Fei finished the soup quickly under Tang Jie's earnest gaze. The soup was fresh and salty, but he felt that his body was warmed up as he drank it. After only a brief moment, his body was refilled with energy and steaming faintly. Hiss! Han Fei was amazed by the glimmer on his hand. Was it the so-called spiritual energy? Am I glowing? He knew that everybody in this world was a cultivator, but it still felt quite wonderful to experience it in person for the first time. Tang Jie, on the other hand, chuckled. How does it feel? When do you think you can become a level 3 fisher? I wasted a lot of time when I was upset, but I've learned to move on. I think I will make it soon. After drinking up the swallowed spirit soup, Han Fei had another 2 clams and finally felt full. Tang Jie still needed to check the results at school, so he left in a hurry, allowing Han Fei to shut the door. Han Fei sat on the bed eagerly. What would cultivation feel like? Exciting and fun. If someone else were in the room, they would be surprised at the calabash tattoo on Han Fei's wrist that even had leaves and vines. Han Fei recited soul fishing, the only art that he knew, but his wrist hurt the moment he got started. He opened his eyes, only to see the calabash tattoo on his wrist. Are you haunting me? The next moment, Han Fei saw another set of data displayed by the so-called demon purification pot. Chapter 3. Strength Matters Most. Demon Purification Pot. Owner: Han Fei. Level: 2 Beginner Fisher. Spiritual Energy: 48. Spiritual Heritage: Level 1, Incomplete, Upgradable. Main Art: Soul Fishing, Repairable. Han Fei was quite surprised. Demon Purification Pot. What was the calabash on his wrist about? On one side of the series of data, there was a glittering option that said, Arts. Han Fei clicked, Arts, curiously. Existing Arts. Soul Fishing, Incomplete. Level 1 of Immobilization, Incomplete. Note: this generic ancient art is now incomplete after the passage of time. Repairing it will cost 1,000 points of spiritual energy. Han Fei's eyes immediately glowed. Am I favored by fate? His joy did not last long. When Han Fei noticed his 48 points of spiritual energy and realized the gap between it and 1,000, he was lost for words. Then, seeing repairable behind the name of the art, he thought he might as well try repairing it. When he thought about that, his 48 points were immediately reduced to 0, and the hazy picture was gone. Bululu. I'm so hungry. Han Fei felt that the world was spinning and he was about to fall over. His overflowing spiritual energy vanished all of a sudden. Han Fei staggered to the table and ate the unfinished clams. He didn't feel better until he gulped down all the clams and his spiritual energy turned to 12 points. However, to his exasperation, the data regarding the clams left him wishing he were dead. They were merely at level 1, barely enough to fill his stomach. 4 points are too few. What does absorbable mean here? When he thought about that, Han Fei realized that the clam before him lost something. He checked his own data, only to discover that his spiritual energy became 16 points. The clam's information had totally changed. Less than name greater than unfresh clam. Less than level greater than 1. Less than quality greater than bad. Less than spiritual energy greater than 0 points. Less than effect greater than this food can keep you from starving. Nothing more. I can do this. Han Fei was surprised. Do I only need to touch the clams and not eat them? Instead of touching all the other clams immediately, Han Fei murmured, the demon purification pot can directly absorb spiritual energy. Does it mean that I'll have infinite spiritual energy as long as there's enough seafood? If I can absorb clams, can I absorb flowers, grass, or stone? Then, Han Fei focused on his spiritual heritage, which was level 1, incomplete. Was it the reason why he hadn't been able to improve? Seeing that there were still some clams in the tank, Han Fei thought of repairing his spiritual heritage, only to discover that it would also cost 1,000 points of spiritual energy. Han Fei was lost for words. Where can I find 1,000 points of spiritual energy? He focused his eyes on the clams again. Several minutes later, he touched all the clams, and his spiritual energy reached 52 points. Wait, the amount of spiritual energy can surpass the capacity of my body. Han Fei was shocked. It meant that he would have inexhaustible spiritual energy as long as he stored enough, whereas other people had to rest and recover after their spiritual energy was used up. However, Han Fei gave up the idea soon, because he did not have even close to enough seafood for absorption. Cleaning up all the clam shells, Han Fei sat on bed again, ready for cultivation. This time, Han Fei dare not repair any art. He merely glimpsed and noticed a progress bar that had moved forward a bit. It must have been because he consumed 48 points of spiritual energy just now. He read on and saw new information. Existing arts. Soul fishing incomplete. Level 1 of immobilization incomplete. Note: the generic ancient art is now incomplete after the passage of time. Repairing it will cost 1,000 points of spiritual energy. Superseding art. Void fishing. Progress. 48 1,000ths. Han Fei clicked his tongue. Fine, I'd better cultivate by myself. Han Fei sat cross-legged on the bed. The calabash appeared faintly on his wrist again, but not as painfully as before. In his meditation, Han Fei felt something cool in the air flowing into his body. After a long time, Han Fei, who was in the middle of his cultivation, suddenly lay back and fell asleep. Bam! Han Fei was sound asleep when his door was kicked open by a ferocious-looking fatty, who pointed at Han Fei and roared, "Here you are. You're still sleeping. You think you're the boss. Go to the general fishery in an hour. Don't think you can stay home because you're ill. Don't come back tonight if you can't complete your mission." Han Fei looked at the fatty, whose name was Zhang Han. The man was a supervisor of the area. A wise man knows when to retreat. With the demon purification pot, it was only a matter of course for him to rise. It was unnecessary to cause trouble now. Han Fei rose quickly and smiled. "Supervisor Zhang, we're going today." "Of course. You think someone will offer you food for free. You're lucky that according to the new rule, common fishermen only need to pay a tax of 150 kilograms of fish every day." Zhang Han then sneered, "However, if you can't submit 150 kilograms, you know the consequence, right? No useless men live in Heavenly Water Village. You'll spend the night on the ocean. Think carefully." Han Fei was alarmed. He knew that the fishermen who couldn't pay the tax would be cast out. It was said that nights on the ocean were dangerous with the fish attacks. Nobody had ever survived 5 consecutive nights on the ocean. However, he said with a smile, "Supervisor Zhang, I've lost my fishing pole and bait, so." Zhang Han grinned. "No biggie. I'll give you an ordinary fishing pole and a box of bait for only 10 low-quality pearls. What do you think?" Han Fei clenched his fists even more tightly. The man was obviously taking advantage of him. An ordinary fishing pole cost 3 low-quality pearls, and a box of bait was only worth 80 sea coins. Taking a deep breath, Han Fei said, "Supervisor Zhang, I only have 20 sea coins for now. Can I borrow your tools?" Zhang Han changed his expression and said angrily, "Why didn't you tell me sooner that you have no money? You don't even have 10 low-quality pearls. You were destined to be a civilian for the rest of your life. If you die in an ocean, how can you pay me back?" Although that was what he said, Zhang Han turned and left, not forgetting to tell Han Fei to head to his store, but interest would be collected. Han Fei was infuriated, but he also realized that he was in a world where the strong preyed on the weak. Revenge was a dish best served cold. He decided to hold himself back until he could get back at the guy. Very soon, Han Fei came to the departure port. Zhang Han had a store himself, but he paid little attention to it. When Han Fei came, the man was eating a tiny shellfish. Zhang Han found a ragged fishing pole and a box of green bait in his store, before he tossed them to Han Fei. He said, "You would have been exiled if you weren't still eligible for the fishing trial. Go now. Remember, 1 low-quality pearl every day." In the registration office, Han Fei finished the paperwork and under the receptionist's gaze, Han Fei boarded an 8-man boat. A middle-aged man next to Han Fei said, "Sit tight. We've leaving." Han Fei was still astounded despite the last experience. This world was too splendid. The reflection of the enormous sun dyed the ocean red. It was very beautiful. "Hey, what's interesting about the sun? You're not baiting the hook." Han Fei turned around, only to discover that everybody was putting the green bait on the hooks of their fishing poles. The green bait was the most common bait for regular fishermen. It was like an earthworm but thicker and shorter. A young man on the boat looked at Han Fei. "You were the guy who was pulled into the ocean by a green turtle yesterday." Chapter 4. First Fishing. Han Fei nodded. "That's me." The young man sneered, "How weak." Han Fei was rendered speechless. "Are the kids here all so caustic?" Several minutes later, the boat landed on the ocean, ripples spreading. Everybody raised their poles. It was hard to imagine that the hook flew hundreds of meters away without a reel after an easy toss. Han Fei was full of questions. Everyone closed their eyes. Their hands glimmered with spiritual energy. Their fishing lines were all slightly moving back. Han Fei was amazed. Why were their fishing lines extensible? Han Fei had an answer. They must be controlling the fishing lines with spiritual energy. But as he recalled, it consumed a lot of spiritual energy. Han Fei cast the hook with all his strength, only for it to land 20 meters away. When he went fishing before, there was always a weight at the end of the line, but he had only a line and a bait right now. It was rather difficult to control the distance with spiritual energy. Han Fei hurried to look at everyone and discovered that they didn't notice it, so he began his fishing as if nothing happened. Skillfully, he pulled, released and shook the pole. To the left, to the right, Han Fei murmured to himself, but everyone on the boat was surprised. Someone said, "Hey, are you an idiot? Your bait is gone." Han Fei did not know what to say. The middle-aged man said, "Pull it back. The green bug is the least active bug, so the fish will not touch your hook when it is still wriggling." Pulling the fishing line was an art. Everybody was lost for words watching Han Fei reel the line. Someone finally commented, "Why have you not starved? Use your spiritual energy, not your muscles." "I used my spiritual energy, but the fishing line wouldn't budge." The middle-aged man said, "Feel your spiritual energy. Concentrate it on the fishing line and pull the line back." Blushing, Han Fei felt his spiritual energy accordingly. When his spiritual energy was attached to the fishing pole and line, he was surprised to sense the obscure attraction between them. "I didn't know I could wield it like this." Refreshed, Han Fei activated his spiritual energy. The hook immediately sprang out of the water. However, it did not stop but darted into the butt of another young man on the other side of the boat. "Han Fei, you're asking to be killed." Han Fei apologized. "Sorry, it was not on purpose." "Don't move. I'll get it out." Phew, the hook flew from the young man's back. Everybody, including Han Fei himself, ducked quickly. A large piece of cloth had been torn off on the young man's butt. Blood was spurting out. Han Fei said, "I'm terribly sorry that I didn't control it well." "Han Fei, I will kill you." The others also looked at Han Fei warily. Was the boy's head damaged yesterday? Why had he forgotten the basics of fishing? Seeing that the young man was charging at him, Han Fei hurried to raise his fishing pole. The young man was so scared that he stopped immediately, suspecting that Han Fei would throw the hook at him again. Someone scolded, "Han Fei, get back to business. We'll call the supervisors if you cause trouble again." Han Fei smiled in embarrassment. All right, the incident was over. The young man did not really give him trouble despite his fury. Han Fei simply sat there after casting the hook, same as what other people did. But such a way of fishing required no skill at all. After almost an hour, right when Han Fei intended to ask for advice in his impatience, someone suddenly stood up and grunted. Then, the guy made a very weird gesture, and his spiritual energy surged out. His fishing pole and line were immediately covered in a faint radiance. Rise, bow. Han Fei's eyes widened. Was it so simple? He then realized that other people were as envious of the man as he was. A huge yellow fish around 60 kilograms had been pulled up by a man named Old Huang. Yellow fish were unaggressive and not as threatening as green turtles and blade fish, so they were one of the cheapest and most popular foods on the floating islands, just like the clams. Seeing the others lifting their poles, Han Fei did the same. It was because the yellow fish struggled too long just now and all the vigilant fish had escaped. Until they reached the level of a fishing master, the fishermen always changed spots every time they caught a fish. Arriving at a new location, everyone cast their lines again. After only a quarter hour, the middle-aged man sensed something. Just like old Chen just now, the middle-aged roared, "Rise!" Han Fei's eyes lit up. It was another green turtle. He remembered Wang Jia's fascinating Crab King's pincer when Wang Jia dealt with the green turtle yesterday. Veins bulged on the middle-aged man's hands, and the line was pulled fast. Holding the pole with both hands, the man turned around and dragged with his shoulder, hauling a big fish out of water. Hiu, hiu, hiu. Stones were thrown. Everybody hid in a corner except Han Fei, who watched the middle-aged man slap the stones away with his glowing hand until he smashed the turtle in the end. A 1-meter-long green turtle fell on the deck, its tail slapping about randomly. It seemed to have passed out. Han Fei had a closer look this time. The green turtle was covered in scales that looked like greenish stones all over its body. Those scales reflected bright blue light under the sun. Less than name greater than green turtle. Less than level greater than 5. Less than quality greater than regular. Less than spiritual energy greater than 12 points. Less than effect greater than it can increase one's physical strength if it's eaten over a long period of time. Less than absorbable greater than. Han Fei realized that the spiritual energy of 3 clams equaled to that of a green turtle. It meant that this thing was not really as impressive as it looked. Everybody exclaimed in shock, "Old Niu, are you a superior fisher now?" The middle-aged man grinned and said frankly, "I made a breakthrough the other day." Everybody congratulated him. Old Chen, in particular, grabbed his arm and asked, "I've been stuck in level 6 for a long time. What's your advice?" Han Fei pricked his ears. He never saw a superior fisher in person before, and he was quite shocked that old Chen had been stuck for almost half of his life. Was cultivation so difficult? Fine, a worker has to sharpen his tools first if he wants to do a good job. I'll crush you after I improve my arts and my spiritual heritage. After the middle-aged man put away the large green turtle, they changed spots again. Half a day passed in the blink of an eye. Of the 8 passengers, everybody had accomplished their task except Han Fei and the young man who was about the same age as him. The sun was setting. They began chit-chatting while enjoying some of their trophies. Suddenly, the young man shouted, "I got one! I got one!" Han Fei looked at him gloomily. Everybody else had accomplished their task, but he hadn't even caught a single fish after using up almost all his bait. Right as Han Fei mocked himself, a seasoned fisher cried out. Old Chen also shouted, "Boy, let it go now. You can't catch this." Chapter 5. Unexpected Breakthrough. The middle-aged man changed his expression. "It's not a fish. You've attracted a tentacle lobster." Han Fei was surprised. A tentacle lobster. The thing that Tang Jie caught earlier. Before the young man realized what was going on, he had already lifted his fishing pole. Everybody saw a pair of long tentacles. They swung their poles at it. The middle-aged man roared, "Break!" However, one of the tentacles quickly wrapped around the young man's arm. To Han Fei's shock, a patch of flesh on the arm was immediately torn off, and the young man fell over to one side of the boat, crying. Old Chen shouted and dragged the young man back by the leg, but the other tentacle extended straight toward him. The middle-aged man instantly butted Old Chen with his fishing pole, knocking him back. Next moment, the young man was pulled off the boat entirely. Han Fei was bold enough to look out, only to discover, sweating, that the young man's head was already gone. From beginning to end, All the tentacle lobster revealed was 2 tentacles. FCK, can I go back to my original world? Han Fei was pale. The young man mocked him that morning, and he had wounded his butt. He was rather sorry that the guy passed away just like that. That was only a kid after all. One of them pondered for a moment and said, let's report it to the supervisors. The supervisors were the patrolmen in the fisheries, under the lead of a fishing master. The captain of supervisors in this fishery was Wang Jia, who saved Han Fei yesterday. Wang Jia soon arrived. He glanced at the crowd and saw Han Fei, but his eyes did not stop on him. With an awful expression, Wang Jia asked, what happened? The passengers quickly explained everything. Wang Jia was immediately irked. What an idiot! Did he not know that the feeling of the tentacle lobster is different from that of other fish? How dare he try to reel it in? The middle-aged man replied, perhaps he was too anxious. It's almost sunset. Han Fei's face was even gloomier after he heard that. As a famous gold digger at sea, he had caught not just common fish but also sharks before, but after an entire day, he failed to even grab a shrimp. It was most humiliating. Wang Jia said solemnly, it hasn't been peaceful recently. Another boat fared even worse than you. They encountered a snake belt. 4 of the 8 people on board died. Hiss. Everybody gasped. A snake belt was even more horrifying than a tentacle lobster. If they had encountered it, they couldn't have ended up any better than the other ship. Han Fei recalled what a snake belt was. It was a kind of long, scarlet fish that looked like a snake, except that its head was almost exclusively teeth. It swam extremely fast in the ocean. It could dart into a human and slither inside his body. Han Fei finally understood why people liked low-level boats, because the passengers could help one another in an accident. If he had met a tentacle lobster on his own, he would have probably been killed. Wang Jia asked, have you accomplished your mission? Yes, we have. Thank you for asking, Mr. Fishing Master. Wang Jia looked at Han Fei indifferently. Where's your fish? Blushing, Han Fei replied, I didn't catch any. Wang Jia was stunned. After being dragged into the ocean by the green turtle yesterday, this guy did not catch any fish today. Wang Jia had never seen a fisher who couldn't catch any fish before. However unskilled you are, you can at least get a few yellow fish or little white fish, right? The middle-aged man said in a hurry, I'm told that he almost drowned yesterday. His hook was unsteady, probably because he had not recovered from the shock yet. He will be better in a couple of days. Wang Jia sniffed. Useless. If you give such a poor performance after a slight shock, what can you achieve in the future? Han Fei did not give a reply, because he was also stunned. Was it really because he cast the line poorly? Wang Jia made Han Fei spend the night at sea despite many people pleading on his behalf. Wang Jia only advised Han Fei that when fishing at night not to cast the line deeper than 3 meters. He couldn't be bothered to show any pity to this useless bum. Old Chen handed over a piece of dried fish and a pot of water to Han Fei. Be careful. Someone else gave Han Fei an iron dagger and said, use this to protect yourself. Han Fei thanked them, feeling warm about other people's generosity. Wang Jia left the boat to Han Fei and departed with the others. Han Fei was bummed after everybody left. He grabbed the fish that old Chen left him and chewed it. It had a pungent smell. After not eating any food for an entire day, Han Fei was already hungry. He soon devoured the dried fish, which was not large at all. Soon, it was completely dark. The waves were not big out at sea, and nothing except for the bright moonlight could be seen. My hook was unsteady. Han Fei remembered what the middle-aged man said. He also remembered immobilization in soul fishing. The books described it in an overly simplified manner. Keep the body, the pole, and the heart as tranquil as still water. It was easier said than done. After all, a human was not a statue. Suddenly, Han Fei felt that his wrist was hot. He rolled up his sleeve, only to find the calabash mark was glimmering. Then, he sensed that spiritual energy was attaching to his wrist and entering his body like the air he was breathing in. The spiritual energy is automatically attracted into my body. Immediately, Han Fei dropped his fishing pole and sat down. He didn't know why the calabash began to absorb spiritual energy, but it was a good thing and could help with his cultivation. Han Fei began cultivating according to memory. The moment he started, the calabash on his wrist shocked strongly, and the spiritual energy attracted was multiple times greater than before. An hour later, Han Fei sensed that something was broken in his body. He was exalted and energetic. Is this the so-called breakthrough? Han Fei looked at the demon purification pot. The data had indeed changed. Demon purification pot, owner, Han Fei, level 3 beginner fisher. Spiritual energy, 60/60. Spiritual heritage, level 1, incomplete upgradable. Main art, soul fishing repairable. Han Fei was delighted. This breakthrough was too easy. Didn't they say that it could take years? Why had he made it after cultivating for only an hour? Han Fei was going to continue his cultivation, when he heard rattling sounds on the ocean. Chapter 6. Precious Spiritual Energy. Dozens of fish were jumping in the water near the boat and did not leave until minutes later, as if they were asking him why the spiritual energy was cut off. Han Fei was quite excited. Could the fish sense the spiritual energy that was attracted to him during his cultivation? Seeing that more and more fish were leaving, Han Fei hurried to put a bait on the hook and cast the line. Could there be a better moment? There was no telling if Han Fei was luckier when he was in a good mood, but he sensed an enormous force the moment he cast the line. Han Fei roared and clutched the pole. Having no time to bother with any fishing tricks, he simply pulled the pole hard. Damn, this creature is strong. The hook was shaking violently, assuring Han Fei that it was not a tentacle lobster. As such, Han Fei hauled it without concern. Perhaps because his level was too low, Han Fei almost lost his fishing pole several times. After a few minutes of struggle, a big yellow fish was finally lifted out of the water. It was not as huge as the one that old Chen caught, but it could definitely be counted as a big fish. Data popped up in his view. Less than name greater than yellow fish. Less than level greater than 3. Less than quality greater than regular. Less than spiritual energy greater than 6 points. Less than effect greater than it can increase one's health if it's eaten over a long period of time. Less than absorbable greater than. Not wasting any time, Han Fei hurriedly fixed the bait and cast the line. Because there were plenty of fish, the bait was taken quickly, but the fish were very strong and broke off the hook. In the end, he couldn't even get a shrimp. After he was familiar with the technique, Han Fei soon caught a second yellow fish, although it was apparently smaller than the first one. Han Fei was not bothered, because it still weighed almost 30 kilograms. His daily requirement was 150 kilograms. However, what surprised Han Fei was that fishing with spiritual energy cost him 5 points of spiritual energy, when this yellow fish only contained 5 points of spiritual energy. That was too much. Another fish took the bait after an hour. Han Fei estimated that it was the normal period of time. The shoal of fish only gathered just now because of spiritual energy. Instead of reeling in the fish immediately after it took the bait, Han Fei learned to concentrate his energy on the fishing pole, sense the fish's struggle, and spin the pole. Then, he could pull the fish up easily. Of course, it was not successful every time. The hook slipped more than 10 times during the 5 hours, and Han Fei only caught no more than 10 fish in total, including 2 little white fish. Another hour passed. The night was already dark. The wind was rising and the temperature was dropping. He had one last piece of bait left. In his cabin, 8 to 9 yellow fish were swimming. He felt lucky that they were all yellow fish. If he had met a green turtle, he might not have been able to catch it. His job would be done after he used the last bait. Suddenly, Han Fei remembered Wang Jia's warning. Would he catch something else if he sank the hook more than 3 meters deep? Han Fei thought that it wouldn't hurt if he tried it. Going slightly deeper than 3 meters shouldn't be too dangerous. Yellow fish were too inferior after all. He intended to aim for the green turtle. This time, Han Fei loosened the fishing line a bit more on purpose. He felt that there might be green turtles 3 meters below. As it turned out, the fishing line moved the moment Han Fei dropped the hook. Are the fish 3 meters below so active? Han Fei was delighted. The deeper a fish was, the faster they would take the bait. He immediately pulled the fishing pole up, but he suddenly lost balance and fell on the boat after the fishing line broke. Thanks to the bright moon, Han Fei saw a cold edge on the dim ocean. A weird fish half a meter long was darting at him. Han Fei realized that it was a blade fish. He had met a blade fish. Did the blade fish cut his fishing line just now? Everybody knew that the blade fish carried a knife on its back. The blade could even be built into weapons and sold at a high price. The knife on the blade fish could be separated from its body. The cold edge that Han Fei saw was exactly such a knife. Han Fei hurried to block it with his fishing pole. Crack! The fishing pole fell apart in the blink of an eye. Han Fei fell back under enormous force. Thankfully, the knife brushed past his face and stabbed into the wood. Han Fei was dazed. It was so close. If he hadn't fallen, would he have been cut in half? Han Fei rolled on the boat and smacked it with the fishing pole. Han Fei's arm became numb. The fish was too strong. Han Fei confirmed that even sharks were not as ferocious as this creature, which had skills. Having no place to hide in, Han Fei suddenly thought of something. If spiritual energy could be injected into the fishing pole, could the fishing pole be used as a weapon? Han Fei grabbed the two halves of the fishing pole. Transmitting his spiritual energy to them, he stabbed them at the head of the fish. Han Fei felt like he was hit in the chest by a giant rock. He was flung into the wall, bleeding internally. The next moment, a heavy fish fell upon his body. Cough, cough. Damn, why are the fish here so dangerous? The fishing pole stabbed into the blade fish's mouth. The fish was too strong and killed itself by pressing against the pole. Han Fei narrowly escaped disaster. After a long time, Han Fei finally returned to himself. He felt he had run out of strength. His body was numb and painful. He finally understood why people did not like catching blade fish. Such creatures were truly lethal. Less than name greater than blade fish. Less than level greater than 6. Less than quality greater than regular, dead. Less than spiritual energy greater than 22 points. Less than effect greater than it can increase one's health if it's eaten over a long period of time. Less than collectible greater than inferior fin knife. Less than absorbable greater than. This is an inferior knife. What would the better ones be like? Han Fei breathed heavily, lost for words. His wrist was feeling a pricking pain after the tremendous consumption of spiritual energy. He lowered his head, only to discover that the calabash was glowing. Vaguely, he saw a green light moving from the blade fish to the calabash before it disappeared. Had the calabash absorbed the spiritual energy? Bululu. Han Fei was so hungry that he cut a piece of meat from the dead blade fish. The meat was stinky and tasteless after the spiritual energy disappeared. However, his hunger was still greatly relieved. He looked at the demon purification pot, but only saw 2 points of spiritual energy. Han Fei was lost for words. The spiritual energy absorbed by the calabash is not counted as my storage. Left with no choice, Han Fei could only pick up a yellow fish from the cabin and devour it. What a pity. It weighs dozens of kilograms. Han Fei complained while absorbing it. In the meantime, he looked at his calabash curiously. However, there was no response after a long time. Chapter 7. The fish have occupied the boat. The fishing pole was broken. Han Fei was utterly bankrupt again. The only thing he had left was a ragged dagger and an inferior knife fin stuck in the wood. Gloomily, Han Fei took out a little white fish and began to eat it raw. It does not taste bad at all. The meat is tight and feels like beef. Han Fei was a bit surprised. This meat could totally be made into sashimi. He thought that the white fish tasted worse than the yellow fish and blade fish, but they were surprisingly good. He finished half of the white fish quickly. To Han Fei's surprise, his spiritual energy increased from 20 to 23. Didn't the white fish have 3 points of spiritual energy in total? He had only just eaten half of it. Han Fei finished the other half of the fish. His spiritual energy became 26 points. He was quite surprised. It was almost dawn. He had survived the night. Han Fei sat cross-legged and continued his cultivation. His wrist became hot again, indicating that a stream of spiritual energy was entering his body, but the amount of spiritual energy was much lesser. Why is it lesser now? Han Fei opened his eyes in surprise and noticed that the 3 moons were about to disappear. The absorption of spiritual energy has something to do with the 3 moons. More than an hour later, the enormous sun revealed itself on the horizon, unleashing the morning sunlight. Han Fei, feeling that his wrist was burning, stopped cultivating, and opened his eyes, only to discover that his wrist was smoking with purple light. Before he rose, a fire had risen on his wrist. Han Fei immediately got back to his feet and extended his hand into the water and checked the demon purification pot in passing. His spiritual energy had turned from 26 into 108. He was instantly surprised. Was it because of the purple light just now? Han Fei almost fell over while he considered. The ocean was boiling, waves rising everywhere. Han Fei saw countless fish swimming towards him as they began to jump merrily. For a start, a few little white fish smacked Han Fei's face. Not just that, a big yellow fish knocked into Han Fei's belly, making him double over in pain. Han Fei then saw a tentacle lobster flying. FCK. Wasting no time, Han Fei dived into the fish cabin and closed it. Soon after he closed the fish cabin. Dum, 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 crack, 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 crack. Too many fish were falling on the deck. Tentacle lobsters were also crawling up there. Han Fei even saw their tentacles through the gaps. When Han Fei tried to take another look, a knife swooshed into the cover and almost stabbed him. Several minutes later, a lobster leg pierced through the cover of the cabin. Bro, please go. Han Fei held his breath. If a tentacle lobster broke it, he would be cut into pieces. Wait, can I try absorbing it? Han Fei immediately hugged the leg without letting it go. Absorb it. Demon purification pot, absorb it. Bam. The cover of the fish cabin was almost lifted. At first, the tentacle lobster struggled hard and nearly flipped the boat over several times, but gradually, it weakened. Han Fei was delighted that the demon purification pot was useful. 5 minutes later, Han Fei felt that the lobster leg stopped struggling in his arms. Its spiritual energy must have been devoured by him. After a couple of minutes, the noises on the deck finally stopped. The fish seemed to have leapt back into the ocean. Han Fei finally summoned the courage to open the cabin. A yellow fish, startled by Han Fei, bumped into Han Fei's head. He almost cried in pain. Confirming that no dangerous creatures were on board, Han Fei jumped out of the fish cabin, only to discover that the deck was a mess. Too many fish, including a blade fish, had been cut into pieces. Other than that, the boat was laden with stones from green turtles. As far as he could see, 3 of them were dead on the deck. Some of them were minced, and some were cut into halves. Han Fei was flabbergasted. How sharp were the tentacles of the tentacle lobsters to cut the green turtles? Han Fei turned around and looked at the 3-meter-long tentacle lobster, which seemed to have been boiled. It had a particularly huge head and a short body. Like dry wood, it was now paralyzed on the deck. But soon, Han Fei became excited. His spiritual energy increased to 156, which meant that the tentacle lobster provided 48 points of spiritual energy to him, the same amount a swallowed spirit soup could provide. Besides that, the 8 fish cabins on the boat, except for the one he had been hiding in, were all full of fish. Han Fei laughed aloud, counting his fingers and murmuring to himself. There are a lot of white fish. The calabash can have dozens of them. The yellow fish are plentiful, too. Why is the water in this cabin red? When Han Fei looked at the fish cabin, he saw something swimming through it. Han Fei kicked the cover and closed the cabin. If his guess was correct, that must be a snakebelt. The snake-shaped fish had killed half of the passengers on a boat yesterday. He certainly couldn't beat it if it ran loose. Han Fei had made up his mind to let the stronger experts open this cabin after he returned. So, Han Fei held yellow fish in his left hand and green turtles in his right hand. After absorbing them, he kicked the bodies off the boat. Although the fish could still be sold after they were dead, the money was not as important as his secret. A dozen minutes later, Han Fei was shocked again. Han Fei had 814 points of spiritual energy. Han Fei breathed heavily. The storage of the demon purification pot had no upper limit. Han Fei enjoyed the sunlight on the deck, delighted. He had thought that it would take a long time before he saved 1,000 points of spiritual energy, but one night turned out to be almost enough. Should I do it again tomorrow night? What Han Fei did not know was that, if he told someone else about it, they would think that he was crazy to train in the morning under the sun, which would have burned other people into ashes. He cleaned up the boat and intentionally left some traces. He also cut the tentacles of the tentacle lobster and kicked it into the water, because he couldn't explain why such a huge lobster was lying here in one piece. The sun was already high, and many boats were descending from the sky. One of them came straight toward where Han Fei was. Wang Jia came with another 2 supervisors. Wang Jia did not check if Han Fei was all right, or notice the dark circles around Han Fei's eyes. He and his subordinates were shocked at the mess on Han Fei's boat. Chapter 8. Sails. What happened? Han Fei replied, "Well, in the morning, when I was still sleeping, turmoil broke out on the ocean and a lot of fish jumped into the boat on their own. Then, I hid myself in the cabin until you came. A tentacle lobster must have caused this." Han Fei spoke innocently. He pointed at the dark circles around his eyes and said, "A yellow fish knocked into me and left me these marks." Wang Jia frowned. "Was it a fish tide?" One of the guys behind Wang Jia said enviously, "This is still a lot. Dozens of fish are enough for you to pay your taxes for 2 months. Han Fei grinned. "I suspect that there is a snake belt in this cabin. I closed it and never checked it." "A snake belt," the 2 guys behind Wang Jia exclaimed. A snake belt was very precious. Was the guy so lucky that even a snake belt jumped into his boat? His eyes bulging, Wang Jia said in a hurry, "You back off." Han Fei hid behind them. If the creature ran loose, it would kill these people before it could kill him. Wang Jia approached the cabin and kicked the cover. A shadow swooshed out instantly. Wang Jia roared and snatched it with a glimmering hand. Bam! An invisible barrier appeared before Wang Jia and blocked the charging snake belt. Wang Jia's glowing hand smashed down. The snake belt, after being slapped into the deck, still had strength. It tried to flee, when Wang Jia drew his fishing pole and cast the line out, hauling it back. After another slap, the snake belt finally passed out. Han Fei was shocked. Could a fish be so tough that even a fishing master could not finish it in one attack? Wang Jia glanced at him. "Not bad, Han Fei. This snake belt is dangerous. It's of little use to you. Do you want to sell it to me?" Han Fei rolled his eyes. "If you want it, just consider it a gift from me." Wang Jia said solemnly, "That's not fair. This is a mid-quality pearl that is basically as valuable as a snake belt." Han Fei kept waving his hands. He knew how the world worked with relations. With other people present, he had to give Wang Jia an out, so he got Wang Jia to give him a fishing pole. The 2 supervisors couldn't believe their ears. What? A mid-quality pearl for a fishing pole? Wang Jia was a little taken aback as well. This poor sod is able to resist the temptation of a mid-quality pearl, if only his talent was better. Sigh. Wang Jia nodded and charged the boat with spiritual energy and said to a guy behind him, "Song Fei, would you please escort him back?" He wouldn't have offered the favor if Han Fei had accepted the mid-quality pearl. After the boat ascended, Han Fei looked at the supervisor, who was staring at the minced blade fish. Han Fei rolled his eyes and asked, "Brother, may I know your name?" The supervisor replied indifferently, "Song Fei." Han Fei proposed, "Brother Song, this blade fish was minced by the tentacle lobster. It was too strong for me to deal with. I can see that Brother Song likes it. I would like to give it to you as a gift." Song Fei was stunned. He had earned a blade fish in this round trip after doing nothing. After a momentary daze, Song Fei accepted the blade fish, assuring him that he could seek him out if he had any troubles in the future. Minutes later, Han Fei cleaned the surface of the boat. Song Fei commented, "You are rather diligent, although your level is low. After you sell your fish, you can buy a bottle of fish head body polishing fluid, or it will be barely possible for you to pass the fishing trial." "Okay, got it," Han Fei responded absent-mindedly. He was quite upset that all the broken pieces of meat were only worth 142 points of spiritual energy. The receptionist, seeing that Han Fei was back, said coldly without batting an eye, "You survived." "Not bad. So many fish." Song Fei said. Xiao Qin, the boy was lucky enough to encounter a fish tide. He survived it by hiding in the fish cabin. It's a major harvest. The receptionist smiled. "All right, I'll have 150 kilograms of them as your tax. You can handle the rest of them." Han Fei's heart was bleeding. That was good money. After the boat was completely docked, someone immediately ran to him. Most of them simply greeted Song Fei and asked Han Fei, "Hey, boy, I'll have all of your yellow fish. I'll give you 20 sea coins for each." Someone else immediately pushed him away. "Boy, don't listen to his nonsense. I'll give you 30 sea coins for each. You'll earn more." "Boy, I want your green turtles. 10 low-quality pearls for each." Chapter 9. Preposterous Bandit. Han Fei sneered. "Wang Jia offered a mid-quality pearl, and you're only giving me a few low-quality pearls. I'll be a fool if I sell them to you." Han Fei looked at Song Fei. Song Fei sniffed and said, "Be quiet. Let's obey the rules. Yellow fish, 16 sea coins per kilogram. White fish, 8 sea coins per kilogram. Green turtle, 40 sea coins per kilogram. That blade is not for sale. If you want them, order them now. If you don't, leave." Song Fei sneered. "You want my blade? Keep dreaming." Everyone was surprised that Song Fei backed the boy. What was his background? Soon, all the fish, except for a yellow fish Han Fei reserved for himself, were sold for 1,480 sea coins, which equaled 148 low-quality pearls or 1.5 mid-quality pearls. Most of the money came from the green turtles, which were expensive. It was not a lot, but many scoundrels in the port were already looking at him. Han Fei had a headache after he received the money. He had to spend the money as soon as possible, or the money would be extorted from him the next day. Song Fei knew it, too, so he brought Han Fei to Wang Jia's shop. As a fishing master, Wang Jia was naturally qualified to open a shop. His shop was in the golden area of the district. In the shop, Song Fei said, "Old Guan, I've brought business for you." An old man, who looked plain but shrewd, came to welcome him. Song Fei shared what happened with the old man. Immediately, the old man grinned. "Boy, it was not easy for you to survive a fish tide. Since my boss promised you a fishing pole, you can pick any of the poles in the shop as long as the price is lower than 1 mid-quality pearl." Han Fei couldn't tell the quality of the poles, but after a quick glance, he noticed that most of them were pegged at 18, 28, 58, or 68 low-quality pearls. There were about 10 poles that cost 88 low-quality pearls. There were only 3 fishing poles with a price higher than 88 pearls. They were labeled with 128, 168, and 188 respectively. Han Fei rolled his eyes and said, "Mr. Guan, can I have the one whose price is 128 low-quality pearls?" "Well, I can pay the extra money if it's too much." Song Fei and Mr. Guan both understood. Everybody wanted a good fishing pole. They even thought that Han Fei would choose the 188 pearl one since he had the money. Han Fei ran some calculations. He still had 120 low-quality pearls. There were too many. Han Fei asked, "Mr. Guan, do you have any fish head body polishing fluid?" Mr. Guan was surprised. "Yes, but every bottle costs 1 mid-quality pearl. Are you sure you want one?" Han Fei said, "Yes." Old Guan carefully took a bottle of bright green fluid from a box and said, "This is a real treasure. Even our shop only has a limited number of bottles. Remember, train immediately after you take it. The effect of the drug can last 6 hours at most." Han Fei put it into his pocket. "Thank you, Mr. Guan." He left the shop with an iron fishing pole worth 128 low-quality pearls and a black dagger worth 8 low-quality pearls. Song Fei said, "All right, you've spent all of your money. Prepare some food for yourself. I'll go back now." Song Fei left, and Han Fei went straight to Zhang Han's shop in the fish market through the main road. Zhang Han was chatting with someone. He was surprised to see Han Fei. "Huh, you're still alive." Han Fei grinned. "I almost couldn't make it back. Here's the money that I owe you." Zhang Han was stunned when Han Fei presented 12 low-quality pearls. How did the guy make so much money after a night on the ocean? Wait, he's holding an iron fishing pole. That's good stuff. Zhang Han gasped. "You were the boy who survived the fish tide." Han Fei smiled innocently. It was pure luck. Zhang Han was so jealous that he wanted to swindle Han Fei out of his money right there, but he couldn't because Han Fei did not have any low-quality pearls. It wouldn't end well if Han Fei reported him to the supervisors. Zhang Han said, "All right, you have money now. Do you want some bait?" 1 low-quality pearl for a box. Han Fei sneered. Are you really taking me for a fool? It's only worth 80 C coins in other places. However, Han Fei merely smiled. Manager Zhang, I have 8 low-quality pearls left. I would like to buy some bait and clams. Do you have any? Zhang Han's eyes immediately glittered. Of course, Brother Zhang will give you a special price. Therefore, when Han Fei left for home, he carried dozens of clams and 2 boxes of bait with him. He had apparently spent 2 more low-quality pearls on them. When Han Fei was almost home, a few scoundrels showed up. As Han Fei expected, someone had been following him since he left the port. A ruthless fatty rubbed his fingers and approached him. Boy, I'm told that you earned more than 100 low-quality pearls today, didn't you? Do you think it's time you pay your protection fee? Han Fei grinned. Brothers, I did make some money, but I spent all of it. I don't have any C coins left now. Enraged, the fatty shouted, Liar! You spent 148 low-quality pearls in 2 hours. Who are you fooling? You have no respect for the tigers. Han Fei was surprised. How did they know the specific amount he earned? Han Fei raised his fishing pole and clams and said, Brother, I did spend them. You know that I avoided the fish tide by sheer luck. I dedicated the snake belt that I encountered to Master Wang Jia, so he asked Brother Song Fei to shop in his store. All my money was spent there. The scoundrels were dazed. What? Master Wang Jia asked you to shop in his store? They couldn't have looked more awful. Considering how lacking in intelligence they were, it was proof that scamming someone really did require skill. Ignoring how Master Wang Jia had scammed a snake belt from him, he had even gotten this punk to spend at his store. No matter how the money flowed, it all entered his pockets. This was truly a great scam. The fatty slapped Han Fei's shoulder furiously. Boy, be smarter next time. 7 days from now, you will pay me 10 low-quality pearls as your protection fee. If you can't, hee, you'll certainly regret it. After the scoundrels left, Han Fei sneered. 7 days, hee, in 7 days, I'll make you regret proposing such a demand. Chapter 10. Vicissitudes of Life. After he returned home, Han Fei did not rush to take the fish head body polishing fluid, which could only strengthen his muscles and bones and increase the odds of survival on the ocean. Han Fei cut the yellow fish into many parts. He intended to cook it, but there were no seasonings in the house except salt. Fine, I'll just steam it. An hour later, he was full and energetic. Void fishing. I should be able to level it up now. Let's see how good you are. Gold light burst out before his eyes. Then, infinite sophisticated words popped up in his head. Right when the art was completed, thunder rumbled in the sunny sky, followed by a huge storm that sprawled over 10,000 kilometers. Almost at the same time, in a floating city 10,000 kilometers away, someone was calculating in the void. An unusual phenomenon in a village under my command. Then, the man stepped forward and wrote a decree in midair with his hand as the pen. From today on, the resource supply for all villages will be doubled. All academies will pay attention to the talents. Report if you find any. At that moment, Han Fei was too pale right now to care if it was raining. When those sophisticated words popped up, Han Fei felt like a balloon that had just popped. He clearly sensed that he had regressed into a level 2 fisher. Han Fei was almost crying. I have just upgraded an art. Shouldn't I be rising to the peak of my life? Why have my capabilities declined? But it was not over yet. After briefly staying as a level 2 fisher, Han Fei continued weakening until he was no better than a 5-year-old. For a moment, Han Fei almost passed out in tears. Wait, why do I feel that I'm stronger when my level has dropped? Thunder was still rumbling. Han Fei looked at the demon purification pot. It had dropped a level and there was only 104 spiritual energy left. Han Fei gasped loudly when he saw the spiritual energy. He remembered that his basic spiritual energy was 60 points when he was level 3. Why was it still 60 now that he was at level 1? However, his arts had an additional hook kiss in void fishing. Han Fei immediately sat up straight and began cultivating. After another hour, Han Fei broke through. In only 2 hours, he dropped from level 3 to level 1 and then returned to level 3. He seemed the same as before, but only he knew what he had grasped. His body would be modified by natural spiritual energy as he got stronger. Now that his veins and his body were solidified, it was a sign of another breakthrough. However, is it really good to make continuous breakthroughs? The moment the idea popped up in his head, he sensed something from far, far away. Immediately, he drank up the fish head body polishing fluid. A cool stream circulated through his body, soothing his heating skin. After another quarter, another crack burst out from his body. Han Fei had broken the barrier and become a level 4 fisher easily. For the first time in his life, he was an intermediate fisher. Likewise, the demon purification pot had reached level 4, an intermediate level. His spiritual energy had increased to 119. Han Fei gasped loudly. He had just reached the new level, and his own storage of spiritual energy was 119 points, which was 50 points more than usual. Was he really going to rise to the peak of his life? My spiritual heritage has become level 1, high quality. Han Fei was shocked. Could his spiritual heritage benefit from the upgrade of his main art? Opening his eyes, Han Fei immediately smelled the stench in the house. He looked at his body, only to see all kinds of sticky dirt and mud. Is this the legendary body cleansing? Han Fei ran out. It was still raining, so Han Fei took a shower in the rainwater. After cleaning up everything, Han Fei boiled 2 clams and ate them, before he left for school in his hideous clothes. Han Fei suspected that his clothes were made of fish skin. Such clothes were extremely tight. It would be fine for men, but if women were to wear such clothes. Han Fei encountered Hu Kun on the road before he arrived at school. Hu Kun was also stunned to see Han Fei. His face was awful. The guy had become famous after surviving the fish tide yesterday. It was said that he also made a fortune by selling the fish. It would be a waste not scamming him. Hu Kun sneered. Hey, isn't this the level 2 fisher who was dragged into the ocean by the green turtle? Chapter 11. Racketeering is my profession. Han Fei had no time to bother him. If the guy could be so cynical as a 12-year-old boy, it was unlikely that he would achieve anything in the future. He immediately left. Hu Fei snapped angrily. Han Fei, stop there. If it weren't for Tang Jie, you would have been crippled years ago. You're proud of that? Han Fei stopped. Is it any of your business? Did I ever eat your yellow fish? Hu Kun's face was gloomy. You indeed did it before. When we were both level 2 fishermen 4 years ago, you ate my yellow fish. Have you forgotten that? However, it was too humiliating to bring it up again. Hu Kun clenched his fists but did not dare to attack. If he accidentally hurt Han Fei could easily report him, with evidence. Looking at Hu Kun's anxiety, Han Fei said with even more disdain, what a coward. Then, Han Fei turned around to leave. Before he could walk away, Hu Kun pulled him back. Make yourself clear. Who's a coward? Han Fei slapped Hu Kun right in the face. Hu Kun was stunned. Why does it feel so wrong? You're just a level 2 fisher, and you dare to hit a level 6 fisher. Hu Kun shouted, you attacked me. Hu Kun grabbed Han Fei's collar and was about to beat him. Han Fei, however, fell back and cried aloud. Hu Kun attacked his classmate so brutally. I'm dying. My internal organs have been terribly injured. Hu Kun had never seen anything like this before. He was stunned when Han Fei dropped himself on the ground. He hadn't done anything yet. Hu Kun turned around, only to discover that a little girl was observing them not far away. They both knew the girl. She was Lu Lingzi, their classmate and a level 5 fisher. Hu Kun released Han Fei in a hurry and explained, I didn't hit him. He fell on the ground on his own. He hit me first. Lu Lingzi rolled her eyes. A level 2 fisher hit a level 6 fisher. You think I'm an idiot? Holding his chest, Han Fei said angrily, Hu Kun, I didn't know that you were so vicious. I'm going to report you even though I've been injured. Lu Lingzi left without looking back. Han Fei and Hu Kun stared at each other. Hu Kun burst into fury. You set me up. Han Fei suddenly sneered. Who set whom up? Do you really think I do not know the reason for my injury before the test? Hu Kun's face changed greatly as he stepped back in panic. If the school discovered it, the consequences would be much more severe. However, on second thought, Hu Kun asked, who can prove it? Han Fei said, if you can beat me up for no good reason, you could certainly set me up for no reason at all. What will our teacher think? Blushing, Hu Kun said, when did I beat you up? Han Fei said mysteriously, Lu Lingzi saw everything. Fine, I plan to get it over with between us, but since you're so angry, I'd better report it to our teacher. Hu Kun almost went crazy. Han Fei had been proud and not nearly as shameless as this. Why had he changed? Hu Kun immediately asked, you want to settle it between us? How? Han Fei said, I know that the high-level students are given the swallowed spirit soup regularly. Tisk, tisk, I feel that I'll have a breakthrough soon. Why don't you give me your swallowed spirit soup? Right, there's also the blade fish knife that you owe me. Give it to me, and we'll be even. Hu Kun's eyes widened. When did I owe you a blade fish knife? A bowl of swallowed spirit soup was precious but not too important, because the breakthrough from level 6 to level 7 required much more than that. Squinting, Han Fei said, ouch. My stomach hurts. I need to find our teacher. Hu Kun was dumbfounded. What exactly is your problem? Pretending to leave, Han Fei said, you don't want to give them to me. That's all right. I have Lu Lingzi as my eyewitness. Wait, gloomily, Hu Kun said, fine. I admit my failure. I'll compensate you. Hu Kun was of a mind to stuff Han Fei into the blade fish's stomach. He was not scared of the consequences of a fight, but if Han Fei told other people how Hu Kun set him up last time, not only would Tang Jie seek Hu Kun for trouble, even his teacher would be suspicious. Han Fei felt delighted as he left for school, feeling at ease. He wasn't worried that Hu Kun would go back on his words. How much intelligence could a 12-year-old have? The school on the floating island was different from what he thought. The buildings in it were quite ragged. At the gate of the campus were 2 statues of tentacle lobsters. Assemble, assemble. Before Han Fei entered the school, a little girl suddenly forced him to run. Han Fei asked, hey, who are you? The girl glared back at him. Join the crowd, you're the only one not present in our class. Han Fei finally remembered that the girl was He Xiaoyu, the monitor of his class. Her father was a teacher in the school. Han Fei asked, He Xiaoyu, what happened? Why are we gathering so early? He Xiaoyu said, don't talk. Someone from up above has come. Up above, Han Fei was puzzled as he asked where Tang Jie had gone. She told him that the mentors had brought them to a level 1 fishery. It gave him a fright. A level 1 fishery was apparently reserved for fishing masters. This showed how much importance was given to Tang Jie. He Xiaoyu squeezed into the crowd with Han Fei, as tens of thousands of students stood there, their heads drawn to the sky. The village leader and all the fishing masters of the school stood at the front. The village leader shouted, welcome, Angel. The 100 fishing masters echoed, welcome, Angel. Han Fei did not join them. He simply stared at the sky. In the drizzle, a person stepped down from the sky with 2 wings, a black fishing pole on his back, and a glowing sword in his hand. Hiss. Han Fei was stunned. A real angel, isn't it too pretentious? Chapter 12. Battle Technique Practice. Then, someone next to Han Fei said enviously, is this one of the legendary experts? He can walk on air. How strong. He Xiaoyu was also envious. She did not forget to encourage Han Fei. Look, that's the legendary hidden fisher. One of them is from our village. Han Fei was surprised. What? Many people leaned closer to her. They had never heard anything about it before and were interested in He Xiaoyu's explanation. He Xiaoyu said, it's said that above the Grand Fishing Master, there are rising fishers and hidden fishers. Only the hidden fishers have such wings. Everyone was stunned. I've never heard anything about it before. He Xiaoyu returned to herself. Stand straight. Even the village leader is too far from their level, not to mention you. The village leader, a grand fishing master, was the strongest expert in Heavenly Water Village. It was said that he could travel the level 2 fisheries. Han Fei knew that his father was even stronger than the village leader before the man died in the unknown land beyond the level 3 fishery. In the sky, the angel, who was essentially an envoy, stopped and looked down. He said indifferently, do you have any heavenly talents in your school? The village leader replied in a hurry, the heavenly talents of our school have gone to a level 1 fishery for cultivating. They're coming back as quickly as possible. Looking into the distance, the angel said expressionlessly, "My name is Fang Zi. I'm here to look for the most distinguished heavenly talents. In the next 3 days, all children between 8 to 12 will have a spiritual heritage test. Also, the resource supply for the school will be doubled. I'll stay here until the soul awakening this time." Everyone went crazy after hearing that. The village thanked him non-stop, and Xiaoyu clapped her hands next to Han Fei. Wow, the angel is recruiting a disciple. It hasn't happened in a dozen years. In the crowd, Hu Kun's eyes glowed. It was a great opportunity for him. He was determined to become an advanced fisher in order to catch the angel's attention. Han Fei did not really care about it since he had his calabash. He scorned that a random person from the sky was respected by them as an angel. After they were dismissed, Han Fei returned to the classroom with Xiaoyu. Suddenly, a teacher looked at Han Fei and asked in surprise, "Han Fei, you made a breakthrough." The teacher was certain. He only asked it because he sensed that Han Fei's vibe was much more powerful. Xiaoyu and other students looked at Han Fei in surprise. The guy had made a breakthrough after 4 years of dawdling. With a smile, Han Fei said, "Thank you for your concern, sir. I understood a lot of things after the 2 near-death experiences, which allowed me to make breakthroughs." Wow, finally, are you level 3 now? If you work harder, it's possible that you can reach level 4 before the fishing trial. Xiaoyu was quite delighted. Han Fei was her classmate after all. Someone else said in disdain, "A breakthrough after 4 years in school. I've never seen anyone with worse aptitude." Ignoring the mockery, Han Fei simply smiled and said, "I'm level 4 now." Some were surprised, others doubtful. Even the teacher frowned. "What's going on?" Han Fei said, "Master, I think it's because I stayed in level 2 for too long. After I advanced into level 3, I reached level 4 very quickly. I feel that I may have more breakthroughs before the fishing trial." Seriously, the middle-aged teacher immediately beamed. "Punch me." That caught Han Fei's attention. Was he being tested? Without any hesitation, Han Fei roared and punched out, with only 50% of his strength, of course. You're truly a level 4 fisher now, even stronger than the usual level 4s. In such a case, you don't need to have Tangji's swallowed spirit soup anymore. You can ask for a bowl every 5 days. "Thank you, sir." His other classmates were uninterested. They even felt humiliated that a useless guy had caught up with them. The guy was also confident of another breakthrough. Did he really think that it was so easy? The teacher was naturally not excited. After all, almost every student in the school was a level 4 fisher. In fact, few people in Heavenly Water Village above the age of 12 were lower than level 5. The greatest obstacle of cultivation was the peak of level 6, where most people got stuck. Some couldn't break through after decades, and some did it in only days. The latter were often praised as geniuses. Obviously, Han Fei was far away from being called a genius. Xiaoyu was the only one who was happy in the crowd. She circled and surveyed Han Fei while pulling her ponytail, giving Han Fei quite a headache. Han Fei said, "Okay, it's enough. I still have to continue my cultivation." Xiaoyu said, "I can teach you. I'm free now anyway. Your results in the last test were too poor. If you can't pass the fishing trial, you will be demoted into a common fisher, and you will lose your share of battle techniques and cultivating resources." Han Fei stopped walking. "Battle techniques," Xiaoyu said, "that's right. My father said that I'm already proficient with sweeping stick now. It's a mortal level, high-quality technique. I can teach you." Han Fei considered for a moment. Battle techniques could only be learned by intermediate fishermen. Since he was 1 now, he needed a battle technique. Taking this opportunity, he asked about matters regarding battle techniques. The world had some publicized, with tiers above mortal level being high quality and ultra quality. However, the latter two were not something the typical person could obtain. Han Fei wanted to test his strength and chose to battle Xiaoyu. As it turned out, an hour later, Han Fei was sitting on the ground, unable to stand up. His arms, calves, thighs, abdomen, and butt had been hit more times than he could count. Han Fei was surprised that such a little girl could wield a stick so intimidatingly. He used 50% of his strength at first, then 80%, and then 100%, but she still crushed him easily. Pleased with herself, He Xiaoyu taught him sweeping stick. Chapter 13. Bashing up rookies. Han Fei also learned that He Xiaoyu's bamboo rod was a treasure obtained from the sea. It was better than his iron fishing pole, so he wanted to borrow it. He Xiaoyu clutched her bamboo rod tightly the moment Han Fei mentioned it. Han Fei was amused. I'm just going to practice with it. I'll return it to you in the cafeteria later. He Xiaoyu was not entirely convinced. You'd better, or my father will kill me. Han Fei's face changed when he took the bamboo rod, which was significantly heavier than his iron fishing pole. Han Fei immediately understood that He Xiaoyu went easy on him just now, or he would have been crippled when the rod hit him. After this tiny interlude, Han Fei recalled that he needed to claim a debt. Hu Kun and Han Fei were not in the same class. At this moment, Hu Kun's class was having free exercises. Those who wanted to become Fang Zi's disciple were all cultivating hard. Han Fei came to the cultivating ground with the bamboo rod. Immediately, a lot of people who were working out saw Han Fei. Hu Kun was gloomy to see Han Fei. Lu Lingzi was also a bit surprised. She then looked at Hu Kun, feeling that Han Fei was slightly different from before. Ignoring the young man, Han Fei shouted at Hu Kun, "Hu Kun, come here." Before Hu Kun replied, the young man scolded again, "Did I not hear that I asked you to get lost?" Han Fei finally smiled, "I would be praising you if I said that you're an idiot. I'm looking for someone else. Is it your business?" Everybody fell quiet. Many girls opened their mouths in shock. Even Han Fei dared to insult someone aloud now. Hu Kun grinned, thinking that Han Fei was dead for sure. This was a cultivating ground where duels were allowed. Did he not know what intermediate level meant? The young man was shocked. Did Han Fei just insult him back? Someone else whistled. "Well, Zhang Ning, he has no respect for you. Zhang Ning, I would have knocked him out already if I were you. Zhang Ning, you can't stand a level 2 fisher insulting you like this, can you?" The young man named Zhang Ning sneered. "You're good. Since you came with a rod, you must be here for practice, right? Let's have a game. I'll show you the gap between us." Lu Lingzi scolded, "Zhang Ning, that's too outrageous." She then turned around to Han Fei. "Go now, you're at different levels. You can't defeat a level 4 fisher." Han Fei grinned. "That's fine. As it happens, I learned a stick technique today. It's a good opportunity for me to practice." Zhang Ning hurried to say, "Leave us alone, Lu Lingzi. This boy has agreed to it. I won't use any weapons." Just as Zhang Ning was about to step forward, Han Fei had already slapped him with his bamboo rod. Zhang Ning shouted, "You're ambushing me." Bam! Crack! "Ah, my neck is broken. My neck is broken." Zhang Ning fell to his knees and cried with a tilted head. Han Fei was too fast for him to dodge just now, and his shoulder was hit by Han Fei's stick. His collarbone had been dislocated. Glancing at Zhang Ning who was crying, Han Fei said to everyone, "It was he who demanded a fight. He talked too much and did not use any weapons. Was it my fault?" Everyone choked. They did not know that he was so strong at all. Someone shouted, "That's not right. His strength and speed were not level 2 at all but at least level 4. Hu Kun and Lu Lingzi both changed their expressions. Han Fei had reached level 4. Han Fei said, "I didn't say that I was in level 2, did I? Are we done? Hu Kun, come here. Wait, you think that you can flee so easily after hitting one of our classmates?" A tall guy walked out with a rod in his hand, except that it was of much worse quality than the bamboo rod. The guy pointed at Han Fei. "You caught him by surprise just now. I don't know why you're so cocky when you have only just reached level 4. The guy then moved into a defensive stance with his stick. Han Fei chuckled and jumped with the bamboo rod before he smashed it down. He had been beaten by He Xiaoyu all morning and knew how powerful it could be. The guy lifted his rod against Han Fei's. Clang! The guy stepped back quickly, his hands turning numb. Has Han Fei really only just reached level 4? Why is he so strong? Lu Lingzi and Hu Kun both blinked. How could Han Fei be so domineering immediately after his breakthrough? Han Fei did not give the guy any chance to fight back. He simply slashed forward with the bamboo rod without using any tricks. Clang, clang, clang. After a couple of hits, the guy's rod was bent. Bam! The guy fell on the ground after taking a hit from Han Kun. You're here specifically to challenge us, aren't you? Another guy walked out with a rod. Han Fei squinted slightly. This was a level 5 fisher who had mocked him more than once before. However, Han Fei was not scared. Seeing that the guy came at him, he merely struck back in the same way. Clang! Everybody covered their ears at the ear-splitting noise. Han Fei, however, was delighted. This guy was much stronger and sturdier. Han Fei struck unstoppably with the bamboo rod. Now and then, he was hit by the enemy's rod, but it was nothing because a level 4 fisher had enough hardiness. He had been tested by He Xiaoyu for quite a while just now. Someone was dumbfounded. Is this guy a monster? Why is he so strong? In the battle, seeing that hitting was useless, Han Fei decided to sweep. He simply allowed the young man to strike his back before he swept with his full strength. Crack! Ah, my arm is broken. It's broken. He Xiaoyu would have been amused if she were here. Her sweeping stick focused on technique, but Han Fei simply hit and swept with sheer strength. Seeing the young man cry on the ground, Han Fei finally grimaced in pain. Hu Kun, if you don't come out, I'll report you to the teacher. Chapter 14. Spiritual Heritage Test. Han Fei had a bowl of swallowed spirit soup, feeling revitalized, while Hu Kun stared at him hatefully. Hu Kun gnashed his teeth. Han Fei, good days don't last. Physical strength doesn't matter in the fishing trial. You will be demoted into an ordinary fisher if you can't pass it. Han Fei patted Hu Kun's shoulder with a smile, as if he were comforting him. Some students even wondered why Han Fei and Hu Kun were so close. Han Fei asked, "Right, where is my blade fish knife?" Hu Kun said, "You're really taking it from me." Regretfully, Hu Kun gave him the knife and declared, "Fine, we're even now. I'll teach you a good lesson next time we meet." After he had the soup, his spiritual energy reached 196 points, far more than the capacity of his body. Before he finished his meal, Tang Jie rushed to him in a hurry. He took a long breath in relief seeing that Han Fei was fine. "Have you advanced?" Han Fei said, "Yes. It feels quite good." Tang Jie asked, "You made it straight to level 4. Han Fei replied, "Yes. I'm making progress fast, probably because I stagnated too long." Han Fei asked, "What about you? How does the level 1 fishery feel?" Tang Jie replied hopefully, "I have to become a fishing master." Someone acquired the power of a spiritual lobster that increased their cultivating speed by 30%. Another got the power of ball fish and had 50% more defense ability. Both Han Fei and He Xiaoyu were greatly shocked. Han Fei found this world uncannier and uncannier. A human could acquire the power of a fish. However, Han Fei still warned him, "Tang Jie, let's listen to our teachers. If it's really so great, everyone would have absorbed the power of fish long ago, but they didn't, so there must be disadvantages. We're only 12. There's plenty of time for us to become hidden fishers." She said, "That's right, we can't be blind. If it's possible, my father would have asked me to absorb it. Let's focus on the spiritual heritage test." Tang Jie asked confusedly, "What's a hidden fisher?" He Xiaoyu talked a lot about hidden fishers and spiritual heritage. Hidden fisher was too far away, but both Han Fei and Tang Jie were interested in her theories about spiritual heritage. Spiritual heritage decided the peak of one's cultivation. For example, He Xiaoyu's father's spiritual heritage was level 2, high quality, and the village leader's was level 3, high quality. Those whose spiritual heritage was above level 3 had mostly gone to the town. So most people in the village only had poor spiritual heritage. Han Fei immediately understood why the former Han Fei was so bad at cultivating. Level 1, incomplete, was so horrible that he should have thanked God that he could still train himself. Tang Jie did not stay long. He had a meal quickly before he was summoned for the test. He Xiaoyu said, "Those who have reached level 7 by 12 have been gathered. It's said that there are more than 100 of them. They will probably be given elixirs. Only geniuses can have elixirs. Han Fei waited for a long time in the classroom, but Tang Jie did not come back. The other people in the classroom were quite unfriendly after they learned that he had reached level 4. They were embarrassed that they were surpassed by such a useless guy. Wang Jia entered the classroom at this moment. He glanced at everyone and said, "Gather in the playground. You will have the spiritual heritage test." Everybody was excited and hopeful. The playground was jam-packed with people. 30 fishermen stood in a row at the front of the playground, a desk before each of them. There was a stone the size of a fist on every desk. The village leader hosted it in person. "Listen up, everyone. The spiritual heritage test is of paramount importance. Starting from today, those who have a spiritual heritage of level 1, high quality will be rewarded with a bowl of swallowed spirit soup every 5 days. Those with level 2, high quality and level 3 will have a chance to study in the schools in the town. And if anyone has a spiritual heritage above level 3, you will be the pride of Heavenly Water Village." Han Fei saw Tang Jie and his peers. They were at the front of the lines. Tang Jie intended to go to Han Fei, but the teacher simply asked them to take the test. He Xiao Yu said, "Some of them must have level 3 spiritual heritage." Han Fei asked, "How do you know?" He Xiao Yu said, "My father said that there are several of them every year. There was even a guy with level 5 spiritual heritage one year. He was directly taken into the city. It had already started up ahead. Cao Jia, a level 7 fisher. Spiritual heritage. Level 2, high quality." The whole playground was shocked that the first student was already level 2, high quality. It meant that he could study in the town and rise to greater heights. Li Rushui, spiritual heritage. Level 2, low quality. Zhou Haibo, spiritual heritage. Level 2, mid quality. Dozens of names were announced. 21 of them were level 2. The rest of them were all level 1, high quality. Suddenly, someone cried, "The spiritual heritage of Wu Lei, from class 3, is level 3, mid quality." Everybody cheered in the playground. Even the village leader stepped forward. Level 3, mid quality was almost a guarantee for a grand fishing master. The guy named Wu Lei immediately exclaimed, "I'm level 3, mid quality." "Haha, I'm level 3, mid quality." The other people all envied him. They had no idea that Fang Zi was observing them from a roof far away. He scorned that they were so satisfied with level 3, mid quality. It would be barely possible for them to make it to the city. Another dozen names were announced. Suddenly, everyone's expressions changed and stood up quickly. Chapter 15. Standard of Spiritual Energy. On the playground, everybody looked at the purple light that was bursting before their eyes in disbelief. Tang Jie, spiritual heritage, 7. Not that the teacher did not want to announce the level, but he had been too stunned to not stammer after seeing a level 7 spiritual heritage for the first time in his life. The teacher was not alone. Everybody on the playground, including the teachers and the village leader, couldn't say anything. Hu Kun, who just raised glittery yellow light in the test, was also dumbfounded. He just intended to cry out his result when Tang Jie's result came in. How could he say anything? "You're Tang Jie." Tang Jie nodded in confusion. Fang Zi grinned so hard that his face was splitting apart. In ecstasy, he patted Tang Jie's shoulder heavily. "You will follow me for the time being." Then, Fang Zi turned to the village leader. "Heavenly Water Village will be rewarded for raising this talent. All resource supplies will be doubled from today. The village leader will be given a spirit ascension pill, a blood coral pole, a crimson sea fruit." Excited, Fang Zi threw out names that other people had never heard before. The village leader almost passed out. Han Fei was happy for Tang Jie when he saw him being taken away. The village leader finally returned to himself after the excitement. Glowing, he shouted, "Continue the test." Hu Kun, spiritual heritage. Level 3, high quality. After the test for the heavenly talents were over, the results instantly became horrible. Those whose spiritual heritage was level 1, low quality looked awful. It meant that they could only be level 6 fishermen at best in their life. He Xiao Yu said, "Only if your spiritual heritage is better than level 1, high quality can you become a fishing master." "All right, it's our turn." Han Fei realized something when he saw the brilliant yellow light that He Xiaoyu unleashed. Those with yellow light were no higher than level 4. As he expected, the teacher announced, He Xiaoyu. Spiritual heritage, level 3, high quality. He Xiaoyu's father was quite excited. His daughter ranked in the top 5 of the 1,000 students. He almost laughed aloud in satisfaction. Han Fei walked forward in silence. Wang Jia looked at him and said, "Put your hand on the measuring stone and inject your spiritual energy into it." It was a simple process. Han Fei saw that the stone glistened insignificantly. "Huh," Wang Jia said in slight surprise. Han Fei. Spiritual heritage. Level 1, high quality. The result was so common that nobody paid any attention to it. Wang Jia exclaimed because he thought that Han Fei was level 1, low quality at best, or his advancement couldn't have been as slow. Nobody noticed that there was a black streak on the stone. It could barely be distinguished from the stone itself. Wang Jia didn't see it, but Han Fei caught it. Han Fei retreated his hand. "Sir, what's the color for level 4 spiritual heritage?" Wang Jia answered casually, "Blue." Next, Han Fei returned in confusion. Below level 4, it was yellow. Between level 4 and level 6, it was blue. Above level 7, it was purple. What did black represent? Han Fei, no need to worry. There's still hope for you. Although you can't compare to me, you're still better than a lot of people. In the cultivating ground, He Xiaoyu said, "You must be defter. Your way of fighting is too violent. We must focus more on technique. If you pour spiritual energy into the weapon, your spiritual energy will be used up after a couple of hits." Han Fei stopped. "We can pour spiritual energy into the weapon," He Xiaoyu said, "of course, but we don't use spiritual energy in our cultivation. It's too precious. However, a crisis may happen anytime in the fisheries, so you have to pour spiritual energy into your weapon, and you'd better make the best use of every point of it." Han Fei was surprised as he asked about matters related to spiritual energy. He Xiaoyu had 142 points now. Theoretically, one could become a level 7 fisher after they broke through 140 points. However, some people choose to train themselves at the peak of level 6. It was said that the best guys in the village could reach 159 points while geniuses in the towns even cultivated to 179 points. Han Fei's heart was pounding. "Are you sure that you have 120 points when you reach level 6? He Xiaoyu said, "That's right. The standard for level 6 is 120 points. Han Fei wondered what his 119 points meant. When he checked the demon purification pot, his face changed. His spiritual energy's upper limit had changed to 121. Han Fei found it odd. Why was the upper limit increased by 2 points? Was it because of the 2 bowls of swallowed spirit soup? Or was it because he cultivated his body with swallowed spirit soup? Thinking about that, Han Fei grinned. "He Xiaoyu, can I borrow your bamboo rod?" He Xiaoyu said, "You want to fight again? I won't give it to you." Han Fei said, "Listen, I'll pay you a bowl of swallowed spirit soup every time I borrow it. How does that sound?" Chapter 16. Retaliation. He Xiaoyu was tempted. She regretted giving away a bowl of swallowed spirit soup just now, and Han Fei said that he would pay her a bowl if she lent him her rod. She thought that Han Fei was silly. He owed her a crimson sea fruit, and she did not lose any swallowed spirit soup. She was so smart. Han Fei, on the other hand, swaggered away with the rod. 1 bowl of swallowed spirit soup equaled 1 point of spiritual energy. Could there be a faster way of advancement? Han Fei kicked in the gate of Class 1's cultivating ground. The students of Class 1 were furious to see Han Fei. "You've come again. Do you really think we dare not beat you up?" Hu Kun asked. "Han Fei, what do you want?" Han Fei said, "Nothing. I'm happy that I made a breakthrough today, so I've come to duel." Han Fei declared, "Whoever defeats me will have this bamboo rod. It was collected from the bottom of a level 1 fishery and is definitely worth 10 mid-quality pearls. What do you say?" He Xiaoyu grew anxious. She pulled Han Fei back and said, "It's mine. My father will kill me if I lose it." Someone immediately jumped out. "Bring it on. You're rather cocky for a piece of level 4 garbage. Han Fei, your bamboo rod is mine." Few people on the island had a bamboo rod. Most of them were fishing masters. He Xiaoyu's father only got her one because he loved her. The guy dared not rob her of it, but if he could win it in a duel, it would belong to him. Their hands glittered, a sign that spiritual energy was emerging. Han Fei, there's no turning back now. Han Fei said, I'm not turning back. However, while I'll give you the bamboo rod if I lose, what will you give me if you fail? The young man said, you can have my iron rod. Han Fei said, how about this? If I win, you need to give me a bowl of swallowed spirit soup. The young man thought that it was no big deal. The swallowed spirit soup was offered for free every 5 days. It was not nearly as precious as the bamboo rod. All right, it's a deal. The young man was quite excited. He thought that the bamboo rod was already his. He hit Han Fei rather heavily. However, Han Fei hit back with the bamboo rod equally ruthlessly, with a mischievous smile. Bam! The collision of the two rods caused such a huge blast that the young man was instantly blown away. His rod was broken into halves, and his hands were shaking and bleeding. His face couldn't be paler. That's impossible. That's impossible. How can you be so strong? Hu Kun, Lu Lingzi, and He Xiaoyu were all dumbfounded. The guy was knocked down after only one attack when they were at the same level. Han Fei sneered, you really think I'm level 4? Why would I challenge you if I was a regular level 4? What surprised him was that the attack cost 8 points of spiritual energy, which meant a yellow fish. But on second thought, he had won a bowl of swallowed spirit soup, which could increase the upper bound of his spiritual energy storage by 1 point. That was definitely worth it. Han Fei immediately shouted, next. Some people lost confidence, but the bamboo rod was still too tempting. Another young man stood out. Just as he was about to speak, Han Fei immediately began the fight. Clang! Under the thunderous explosion of spiritual energy, both of them became pale. However, Han Fei swept with the bamboo rod without thinking, unleashing all his strength. His opponent was flung away into the wall, vomiting blood and unable to stand up again. Next, He Xiaoyu was shocked. How could the guy be so good? He only learned the technique this morning. Was he really untalented? Hu Kun looked awful. He was also surprised that Han Fei was so good. He had thought that he could catch the angel's attention, but Tang Jie stole his thunder. Was he going to be eclipsed by a piece of garbage now? Hu Kun immediately hinted to his friend. Han Fei, since you're here for duels, I assume you welcome all opponents. I, Wang Ming, am a level 5 fisher, and I also practice sweeping stick. Do you dare to duel with me? Han Fei said, of course. But since your level is above mine, you need to pay 2 bowls of swallowed spirit soup. All right, 2 bowls it is. The battle began quickly. Han Fei was not scared at all but simply attacked, swept, and pierced just like before. Han Fei launched 3 heavy attacks at the very beginning. His opponent was rather shocked. Did the guy have unlimited spiritual energy? A level 4 fisher was only supposed to have 80 points of spiritual energy. Han Fei's heavy hits should have cost 12 points each time. How many times had he struck? Clang, clang, clang. Everybody blinked every time their weapons clashed. How could the guy still fight? Bam! His opponent was thrown away. Breathing heavily, Han Fei said, next. Are there more? After 7 consecutive sweeps, Han Fei knocked the guy out again, not giving him a chance to fight back. Everybody was greatly shocked. Han Fei could defeat a level 5 fisher. A bunch of people jumped out the next second. He Xiaoyu pulled Han Fei's sleeve and said, wait, you can't fight on. You'll lose if you continue. Han Fei smiled and shouted, where is my soup? Why are my 4 bowls of soup still not here? Everybody could tell that Han Fei had been worn out. However, the absorption of the swallowed spirit soup would take a long time. How much spiritual energy could Han Fei regain if he drank it now? A few minutes later, the soup was delivered. The students looked awful. They were mad that they lost 4 bowls of soup so easily. Han Fei gave a bowl to He Xiaoyu. We're even now. Han Fei chugged the 3 bowls of soup without stopping. Han Fei took a deep breath and realized that his spiritual energy had reached 300 points. It was a profitable deal. Han Fei shouted, I feel that I can kill a big meat turtle. Who's next? Someone said suspiciously, he must be pretending. Take him down. Then, Han Fei charged at him with his rod and jumped at him. The guy was astounded. When did I say I want to fight with you? Bam! After a collision, the guy's iron rod was broken, and he vomited blood on the ground. You're shameless. When did he say that he would challenge you? Han Fei said. He said that he would take me down. That's a declaration of war. I didn't know that he was so useless. That's enough. Hu Kun stepped forward and said, Han Fei, what's the meaning of this? Chapter 17. Overly full. Han Fei had thought of a plan. He grinned and said, from today on, I will get back at those who bullied me before. However, if they offer me a bowl of swallowed spirit soup voluntarily, I'll let bygones be bygones. Hu Kun also wanted to beat Han Fei, but he knew it would be too outrageous if he were to go up. He had to hold back. Han Fei turned around and sniffed, you are too weak. None of you are worthy. Even He Xiaoyu was confused. The Han Fei today was completely different from the Han Fei she knew the past 4 years. She had heard what happened to Han Fei before and understood why Tang Jie protected him. Had Han Fei really awakened, like he claimed? But why was he so violent after awakening? As a matter of fact, Han Fei was not violent at all. He was merely eating swallowed spirit soup with an excuse. If one bowl of the soup could increase the upper limit of his spiritual energy by 1 point, would he be invincible after he had 100 bowls? In the cultivating ground of Class 2. Bam! The gate was kicked open. Han Fei announced, hey, everyone, let's make a deal. This bamboo rod of mine is most valuable. Whoever defeats me will have it. Of course, it doesn't matter if you lose. All you need to do is to give me a bowl of swallowed spirit soup. A round of mockery sounded like before. 10 minutes later, everybody was lying on the ground, and a couple of bowls of swallowed spirit soup had been placed before Han Fei. Gouda, Gouda. Han Fei looked at He Xiaoyu, who was still dazed, and said, do you want another bowl? The rent for your rod that I proposed seems too petty. Han Fei grew famous after half a day. A useless guy had defeated everyone of his level, and even some whose level was higher than his, in all classes. The whole school was shocked. The faculty was having a meeting discussing the arrangement for the geniuses with level 3 spiritual heritage, when an intern teacher came in and said, Master Wang Jia, I'm afraid there's something you need to take care of. Wang Jia was dazed. What is it? The intern teacher replied, well, Han Fei from your class fought on campus. Wang Jia chuckled. Han Fei, who did he fight with? Mr. Zheng, it's not unusual for students to practice with each other, or they will be flowers in a greenhouse. The intern teacher smiled bitterly. Was it really practice? No, Master Wang Jia, he has defeated everybody in his grade. Nobody in his level fights him anymore. He's now challenging those whose level is higher than his. Who? All the fishing masters were astounded. What? He defeated a whole grade and even challenged people beyond his level. Wang Jia asked in astonishment, are you sure that you're talking about Han Fei from my class? The intern teacher replied, is there a second Han Fei in our school? When the teachers arrived, Han Fei was shouting at a class, are you doing it or not? This bamboo rod can be sold for 10 mid-quality pearls, and you only need to pay a bowl of swallowed spirit soup. However, the experts of his level all shook their heads quickly. Han Fei said, what a bunch of cowards. That's fine. However, whoever bullied me before better give me my swallowed spirit soup in 3 days, or you will know how merciless my rod can be. Someone said grimly, I'll fight you. Han Fei said, that won't do. You're a level 6 fisher. I'm only level 4. Having been enraged by Han Fei, the guy shouted, I don't want your bamboo rod. If you win, I'll give you 4 bowls of swallowed spirit soup. Deal. Han Fei was meaning to find out the gap between him and a level 6 fisher. The guy offered him a chance. He Xiaoyu said, Han Fei, you're out of your mind. He's level 6. Don't break your foundation for some swallowed spirit soup. Han Fei said solemnly, am I doing this for the swallowed spirit soup? No, I'm only polishing myself. Only with a strong body can I better survive on the ocean. He Xiaoyu blinked. Why do I feel that you're fooling me? You're obviously doing this for the swallowed spirit soup. One of the mentors said, huh, that's Qin Guang from my class. His spiritual heritage was level 2, high quality in the test. Han Fei is fighting him. Wang Jia was dizzy himself. Wasn't Han Fei a level 2 fisher? Why could he fight a level 6 fisher? Only then did another teacher tell him that Han Fei had broken through to level 4. The fishing masters were still chatting when Han Fei and Qin Guang began to fight. Spiritual energy flourished between them. Enormous power burst out between the bamboo rod and the iron rod. Han Fei simply smashed forward, spiritual energy flowing from the bamboo rod. Unable to break his opponent's defense, Han Fei began to sweep. After a couple of attacks, he changed from sweeping to smashing again. Qin Guang had a lot of abilities, but he couldn't resist against Han Fei, who was unleashing his spiritual energy without any restraint. Every fisher only had limited spiritual energy. His 136 points had all been used to block Han Fei's bamboo rod. How could he fight on? After the 16th hit from Han Fei, Qin Guang's rod was finally blown away. Qin Guang was pale. He couldn't understand why he was defeated by a level 4 fisher. Did the guy have unlimited spiritual energy? Not just Qin Guang, all the fishing masters were dumbfounded, too. How could a level 4 fisher have so much spiritual energy? Han Fei struck 16 times in total. Even if it cost 8 points of spiritual energy each time, that would be 128 points in total. It was the capacity of level 6, not level 4. Han Fei, on the other hand, picked up the swallowed spirit soup and had another bowl. Han Fei immediately looked better. The gap between level 6 and level 4 was obvious. His opponent's hardiness was better than his own. If Qin Guang had abandoned defense and fought back, the result of the battle could have been different. Han Fei said, "He Xiao Yu, drink some for me. I'm full." He Xiao Yu was almost in tears. "I'm full, too. I've had 13 bowls." One of the middle-aged fishing masters found it odd. Why was his daughter involved in this? Also, why did Han Fei's bamboo rod look like his daughter's? The other fishing masters were lost for words, too. They had never seen anyone fed with swallowed spirit soup. How many bowls had Han Fei had? Actually, the swallowed spirit soup was of no use to Han Fei now. Han Fei realized it when he discovered that the upper limit of his spiritual energy was stuck at 139 points. However, he could continue his challenges. While the capacity of his spiritual energy couldn't be changed, the swallowed spirit soup could refill the spiritual energy he lost. A student shouted from the crowd, "Han Fei, you've had more than 30 bowls of swallowed spirit soup. Do you not need to pee at all?" Han Fei, however, burped and said, "I can hold it back for now." Who's next? Suddenly, there was a fierce shout, "Han Fei." Han Fei said without looking back, one at a time, "I'm not done with this class yet. Don't be hasty. How many more classes are you planning to fight?" Han Fei turned around, only to discover Wang Jia as well as a bunch of other teachers. Darting his eyes about, Han Fei said in a hurry, "Master, I have to pee. I'll go to the bathroom. You can hold it back. You're not going anywhere." He Xiao Yu rose in a hurry and said, "Han Fei, my bamboo rod." Han Fei realized that he couldn't fight on anymore, so he threw the bamboo rod back to He Xiao Yu. Everybody was relieved after Han Fei left. Finally, even a level 6 expert was defeated by him. Did they have to ask a level 7 expert to crush him? Why was the useless guy so strong all of a sudden? Everybody knew that Tang Jiyi's spiritual heritage was level 7, but Han Fei's was only level 1. Even if Tang Jie asked the angel to help him, he couldn't have grown so fast. On the playground, Wang Jia narrowed his eyes and asked, "I can understand your advancement, but what's with your spiritual energy?" Han Fei said, Master, my spiritual energy circulates in my body." Han Fei was immediately slapped in the head by Wang Jia, who was lost for words. Even Fang Zi, who came from the city, could not circulate spiritual energy in his body, and Han Fei said he could. Chapter 18. A War Caused by a Tortoise. Wang Jia was suspicious about Han Fei's ability to absorb spiritual energy. He had never seen anyone who could absorb it as fast. Was it a talent? But if so, why had Han Fei never revealed it until today? Wang Jia said, "Attack me." Han Fei hesitated. "Master, I don't want to waste my spiritual energy on my teacher. Wang Jia said, you will do what I ask you to. Enough talking. Han Fei said gloomily, Master, I don't have a rod. I borrowed, he shall use. Wang Jia thought for a moment and said, wait a moment. Several minutes later, Wang Jia returned and tossed an iron rod to Han Fei. Hit me. Han Fei knew that he couldn't squirrel his way out of this. All he could do was waste some of his spiritual energy, striking heavily with an explosive sound. Bam, bam, bam. Wang Jia blocked with his fishing pole, at ease. Han Fei's smashing, sweeping, and piercing couldn't hurt Wang Jia at all. Han Fei was greatly shocked. How strong would grand fishing masters and hidden fishers be if a fishing master was already so strong? Pondering for a moment, Wang Jia said, your body is as good as that of a level 6 fisher. Is it a naturally endowed talent? But he quickly shook his head. Han Fei's spiritual heritage was level 1, high quality after all. Such a talent couldn't be of much help. Besides, it remained to be seen whether or not it was Han Fei's talent. Wang Jia said, you'd better stop asking for your classmates' trouble. Since you're good at fighting, you can spend more time in the general fishery. Try releasing your hook more than 5 meters deep, but make sure it's no more than 8 meters deep. Han Fei asked, Master, shouldn't I learn battle techniques right now? Wang Jia was amused. Battle techniques? You want to learn more battle techniques when you haven't grasped sweeping stick yet? Come to me when your soul awakens or when you reach level 7. Han Fei had temporarily dropped the idea of learning battle techniques. After all the duels, he indeed realized that everybody practiced stick arts. Also, the stick arts were quite brutal battle techniques themselves. Han Fei was quite satisfied with it. Tang Jie did not return. He did not send any messages after Fang Zi took him away. Having devoured almost 40 bowls of swallowed spirit soup, Han Fei was almost overflowing with spiritual energy, but it was only an illusion. The data in the demon purification pot had soared. Owner: Han Fei. Level: 4 intermediate fisher. Spiritual energy: 1488, 139. Spiritual heritage: Level 1, high quality upgradable. Main art: Void Fishing, Chapter 1. Hook Kiss Mortal Level, Divine Quality. Han Fei was excited at the storage of his spiritual energy. He wanted to infer another awesome technique, but his level was too low for him to practice any other battle techniques yet. In the morning, Han Fei left for the port with his fishing pole. The port was as lively as ever. There were 3 main roads to the port, and all were jam-packed with people. There were also 5 more ports that were as prosperous as this one. He passed by a stand that sold fragrant snails. It was surprisingly popular. Han Fei clicked his tongue. He didn't know there were so many rich people. Fragrant snails were snails that lived at the bottom of the ocean. Some fish fed on them, and most fishermen got them by capturing those fish. Of course, some of the more adventurous fishermen would dive into the water and dig them from the bottom of the ocean, even though the bottom of the ocean was full of dangers, such as snakebelts or poisonous sea snakes. However, returns were the best motivation. Han Fei was in no rush today, so he observed a bit longer. Then he realized that most food here was steamed or boiled without any seasoning. Would he make a fortune if he opened a barbecue shop? Before Han Fei was able to consider the idea, the crowd clamored far away on the main road. Dozens of people came to Han Fei with a middle-aged man at the center. When they were closer, Han Fei saw a giant meat tortoise on the man's shoulder. He glanced at it and the data popped up. Less than name greater than giant meat tortoise. Less than level greater than 9. Less than quality greater than regular. Less than spiritual energy greater than 188 points. Less than effect greater than increases health, broadens veins. Less than collectible greater than lousy shell. Less than absorbable greater than. Han Fei was surprised. It was the creature of the highest level that he had seen. The spiritual energy it contained was enormous. Hiss. A lot of people gasped loudly. Someone exclaimed, Heavens, a giant meat tortoise, how did you get it? Someone approached the middle-aged man and said, Brother, 5 mid-quality pearls is a fair price. Why don't you sell it to me? The middle-aged man shook his head stubbornly. This tortoise is for my son's cultivation. I won't sell it. The man next to him, who was obviously a merchant, suggested, "Brother, what's your son's level? Does he need a weapon or a battle technique? We can trade." Right then, the crowd was divided. A handsome young man in white clothes came over with a bunch of servants. Seeing them, someone immediately shouted, "The Wong family. A family of 5 fishing masters." Someone said in a low voice, "I'm told that the leader of the Wong family is already a grand fishing master. This giant meat tortoise will definitely go to the Wong family." The young man smiled at the middle-aged man. "Uncle, why don't you sell the tortoise to me? I'll offer you 8 mid-quality pearls and a bottle of fish head body polishing fluid." The man was astounded by the offer. Before the middle-aged man said anything, another bunch of people approached from the other end. The dealers beside Han Fei hurried to clear the way. "It's Li Hu, the young master of the Tigers. Get out of the way." The Tigers were an infamous gang in Heavenly Water Village. The leader of the gang had a rarely seen spiritual beast that protected him in the level 1 fishery. On the ocean, even the grand fishing masters had to show him some respect. Li Hu glared at the young man from the Wong family. "Wong Baiyu, is the Wong family invading the territory of the Tigers?" Wong Baiyu was not angry at all but simply chuckled at him. "Are the Tigers allowed to disrupt fair deals at the port? Or do the Tigers think that nobody in Heavenly Water Village can suppress them?" Li Hu said, "Why don't you ask him if he dares to sell it to you?" The middle-aged man immediately dropped the idea. He couldn't afford pissing off the Tigers. Wong Baiyu said, "Why don't you buy it? I can rob you of it afterward. It will save me a lot of money." He couldn't have looked calmer, but his declaration was most ruthless. Li Hu grinned. "Try robbing me." The middle-aged man was quite pitiful. He could crush the 2 brats easily, but he dared not touch them at all because of their family background. "You can divide the tortoise evenly." While the 2 parties were at odds, somebody suddenly suggested this. Instantly, everybody looked at the source of the voice. Chapter 19. Undersea Shock. Han Fei only said it innocently. He thought that it was just a tortoise, and that they should respect the uncle who had obtained it through all the trouble. Li Hu's eyes beamed with coldness. Before he spoke, one of his subordinates scolded, "Boy, who allowed you to talk?" Han Fei was lost for words. "Are you suggesting that I can't talk?" Wong Baiyu, however, chuckled. "Have the Tigers forbidden everyone from talking? If you dare to touch him, I'll cut your hands." Li Hu sneered, "His suggestion is not bad. I'll have the shell, you can have the meat." Wong Baiyu scorned with good manners, "What are you thinking? Can you make use of the shell? In the whole Heavenly Water Village, only the Wong family has an armorist. If you can find a second one, I'll give the shell to you." Li Hu seemed to have lost interest in debating. He sniffed and said, "Beat them. Whatever is in the Tigers' territory belongs to the Tigers." 2 people behind Li Hu unleashed magnificent auras and glowed with spiritual energy, indicating that they were at least level 6 fishermen. The 2 of them charged out like arrows, but halfway through, 2 swords that were also enshrouded in spiritual energy darted at them. Han Fei stepped back in a hurry. For a moment, he sensed a power that could rip him apart easily. Shua! A cold light flashed, and the 2 swords stabbed into the ground, with 2 hands next to them. Armorist! Li Hu was appalled. He looked at the crowd, only to see a brawny, middle-aged man walking toward him with an enormous box. "Third young master." The man approached Wong Baiyu and greeted him respectfully, before he stepped aside. Li Hu said, "Good. Is the Wong family declaring war on the Tigers?" Before Wong Baiyu could say anything, the middle-aged man replied indifferently, "Declaring war on the Tigers. Ask your father to make the remark again." The folly ended as fast as it started. Wong Baiyu chuckled and said, "Right, Li Hu, I'll have someone send the meat to your house later." All the onlookers were too scared to say anything. The middle-aged man who carried the giant meat tortoise dare not argue. Someone took it away from him and gave him his reward. Li Hu sniffed and walked back coldly. Han Fei stayed where he was, still recovering from the shock. After a flash, 2 arms fell on the ground. What if the swords were shot at their heads? Han Fei looked at the man who carried the box in astonishment. "Armorist, what's that?" He did not know anything about it. He speculated that he would have the answer when he became a fishing master. He was not hasty. The street was occupied by noise again after the fight, but Han Fei did not want to stay anymore. There were too many secrets in this world waiting to be unveiled, and in order to do that, he had to become a fishing master. In the departure port, it was still the same receptionist. Han Fei said, "Sister Xiao Qin, just for me alone." Xiao Qin asked in surprise, "For yourself? Can you afford the tax?" Although she questioned Han Fei suspiciously, she had already begun to register for him. Few people rented boats for themselves, so Han Fei's boat came fast. He rented an 8-person boat because it had 8 fish cabins. If another fish tide took place, he would be in for a treat. Han Fei got on the boat and flew somewhat far away in the general fishery. The general fishery was said to have a length and width of 1,000 kilometers, but few people ever made it 500 kilometers away, because there wasn't enough spiritual energy for them to control the boat. Even the best fisherman could only reach 700 kilometers away. As for Han Fei, he did not intend to go so far away. He planned to go 200 meters away. If he got too far, he might not be able to return. However, after a dozen minutes, Han Fei discovered, to his shock, that the boat flew further and further beyond his control. "Damn, are you kidding me?" Back in the headquarters of the Tigers in Heavenly Water Village. "Young master, I guarantee that guy will never return." Li Hu said, "All right, got it." Han Fei did not know that somebody had set him up. Bam! After an explosion, Han Fei discovered that the controller was broken. His eyes almost popped out. "I can accept that you malfunctioned, but how could you explode?" Han Fei was grim. He did not know how far he had flown, but he could not see another boat on the ocean. Also, after the controller exploded, the boat lost momentum and couldn't float anymore. Shaking, it dropped quickly. "Damn, I'm going to be killed." The boat was falling from hundreds of meters high in the sky. Han Fei believed that he was doomed. The boat would definitely smash itself into a pile of wood. Han Fei clutched the edge of the boat in the raging wind. Right before it hit the water, he sprang from the boat and dived into the ocean. He couldn't be more nervous. The fish in the ocean could be horrifying. If he encountered a blade fish or a snakebelt, he could be killed any minute. Thankfully, no shoals were around. Even if there had been any, they had been scared off by his sudden dive. The first thing Han Fei did in the ocean was open his eyes and search for the boat. The fall was slower than he had expected. If the boat was of reasonable quality, it shouldn't be damaged. But an accident did take place. Han Fei saw an enormous green turtle far away that was attracted to him and swimming in his direction. It was twice the size of regular green turtles. Shoot! The creature was only 5 meters away from him, but it suddenly turned around, as if it had lost interest in him. Han Fei took a breath in relief and hurried to swim upward. However, he immediately saw a few shiny knives. Han Fei felt like crying. He had met multiple blade fish. He dared not move at all, hoping that they would not take him for food, which he did not look like at all. As he expected, the blade fish circled Han Fei and left. One of them even stared at Han Fei for quite a while, as if wondering why it had never seen such a thing before. Han Fei reached for the knife on his waist. Who knew if the blade fish would come and cut him? Seeing no reaction from the blade fish, Han Fei waved his limbs, ready to ascend to the surface of the ocean. When Han Fei swam, he realized that his vision was surprisingly good in the water. Also, his movement in the ocean couldn't be easier. Were the people in this world naturally born with swimming skills? However, before Han Fei reached the surface, he saw a snake-shaped creature slithering at him fast. Damn, a snakebelt. Han Fei couldn't be more unlucky. Green turtles and blade fish were fine. They wouldn't attack until they were in danger. However, the snakebelt was different. It liked warm things best. What could be warmer than Han Fei right now? It wanted to pierce his body. Thinking about that, Han Fei dived down. If he were to reach the surface of the ocean, the snakebelt would strike him easily when he couldn't see it. Holding his dagger, Han Fei faced the snakebelt warily. The snakebelt was circling, and the dense sharp teeth on its head were opening and closing. It seemed to have grown interested in Han Fei. Han Fei's heart pounded. He tried to calm himself down while he confronted the snakebelt with his dagger. Suddenly, Han Fei sensed that a shadow was darting at him from the left near his feet. Chapter 20. The bottom of the ocean. Not daring to ignore it, he stabbed his dagger in that direction. At the same time, he tightened his muscles and covered his body with spiritual energy. He felt lucky that he didn't upgrade his spiritual heritage, or his spiritual energy wouldn't have been enough. Other people wouldn't think about that at all. Only the advanced experts above level 7 could cover their body with spiritual energy, because it consumed a lot of energy. While 10 or so points of spiritual energy were needed to enhance a weapon, at least 30 points were required to enshroud the body. After his body was enshrouded by spiritual energy, Han Fei suddenly seemed to have turned into a fish. His body was no longer affected by the current, and his vision and reaction time significantly improved. Bululu. Han Fei slashed his dagger, but he was still not as fast as the snake belt. It opened its mouth and took a bite at his chest. Quickly, Han Fei turned away, slashing his dagger and punching his fist at the same time. Because his speed was better, the snake belt was hit, but not very badly. It was only flung half a meter away before it regained its balance. Han Fei quickly turned around, only to see the snake belt coming at him again as fast as a ray of light. Han Fei was incapable of any undersea battle techniques. He regretted that he didn't take an iron rod just now. If he had the rod, he might be able to crush the creature easily. However, since he only had a dagger, he could only use it as a rod. Woo, woo, the noise when he wielded the dagger underwater was weird. Han Fei poured his spiritual energy into the dagger and waved it crazily. Although it dealt little damage, the snake belt was more or less intimidated. Then, Han Fei's wrist hurt. As it turned out, the snake belt bit him on the wrist, seeing that it couldn't win a head-on battle. Han Fei did not know that the fish was intelligent. It was scared of Han Fei's dagger, which was brimming with spiritual energy, so it intended to bite his hand and force him to drop the dagger. Right when Han Fei thought that part of his flesh would be bitten off, Han Fei's wrist suddenly glittered. A calabash appeared out of nowhere and glowed. As if terrified, the snake belt turned around, trying to flee. Han Fei certainly wouldn't let it go, not after he had wasted hundreds of points of spiritual energy on the creature. Immediately, he grasped the snake belt's tail. Speculating that the tail might be slippery, Han Fei then stabbed his dagger into it. Immediately, the snake belt squeaked and dragged Han Fei downward crazily. Han Fei, stunned and caught unprepared, was suddenly hauled to the bottom of the ocean. By the time he realized he should release the tail, he had descended dozens of meters. He felt the pressure of the water. He planned to let it go and swim back up, but after a quick glance, he discovered several snake belts, green turtles, and even a meat tortoise in the distance. There was also an assortment of other fish that he had no time to recognize. Not daring to loosen his hands, Han Fei descended deeper and deeper and felt more and more pressure. For reasons he didn't know, he did not feel any lack of oxygen after fighting for such a long time and being pulled all the way to this place. His body was still functioning normally, and he felt that he could hold his breath for another 20 minutes. However, he certainly couldn't spend the rest of his life in the water. Seeing that he was about to reach the bottom, Han Fei gripped the dagger and clutched the snake belt's wound. Exerting his strength, he immediately cut the snake belt into 2 parts. Blood gushed out. Having no time to care about the snake belt, he swam as far away from it as possible. Several minutes later, fish emerged out of nowhere and bit the snake belt. Han Fei watched the ferocious predator be reduced into a long fish bone in the blink of an eye. Han Fei saw coral and swam in that direction. It was too horrible. If dozens of fish were to bite him, he would be nibbled into a skeleton even if he were a fishing master. However, after Han Fei saw the full view of the bottom of the ocean, he was dumbfounded. The bottom of the ocean was full of crimson coral that stretched out for thousands of meters, as well as all kinds of shells. Clams were opening and closing, enormous mussels were sleeping, green crabs half a meter long were watching Han Fei and warily holding their pincers, and sea anemones, long tentacles were waving in the water. For a moment, all kinds of data was popping up before Han Fei's eyes. Less than name greater than bloody anemone. Less than level greater than 10. Less than quality greater than regular. Less than spiritual energy greater than 1888 points. Less than effect greater than inedible, for pharmaceutical purposes. Less than collectible greater than dissolved poisons. Less than absorbable greater than. Less than name greater than ruler coral. Less than level greater than 10. Less than quality greater than regular. Less than spiritual energy greater than 100 points. Less than effect greater than inedible, for forging purposes. Less than collectible greater than coral heart. Less than absorbable greater than. Han Fei was overwhelmed by the data. There were too many creatures for him to check. In that moment, a colorful fish was absorbed by a sea anemone. Then dense tubes were stabbed into the fish's body, turning it into bones. Feeling creeped out, Han Fei stayed as far away from the sea anemone as possible. He turned around, hoping to see something else. But a starfish the size of a basin spun quickly like a top and squeezed into the mud. Han Fei even saw a clam, several meters long, whose mouth was wide open. There was a glittering pearl in it. Han Fei was sure that it was not a regular pearl, because it was glowing. Oh, could it be a high-quality pearl? Han Fei observed it carefully. Less than name greater than ghost blade clam. Less than level greater than 10. Less than quality greater than regular. Less than spiritual energy greater than 192 points. Less than effect greater than it tastes delicious and can increase physical qualities. Less than collectible greater than ghost pearl, which can nurture the veins and nerves when eaten. Less than absorbable greater than. Whoa, this is a real treasure. Han Fei knew that anything that could nurture the veins and nerves was worth dozens of mid-quality pearls. Most people couldn't afford it in their lifetime. Han Fei looked around. The bottom of the ocean was less dangerous. While many huge fish were swimming around, none of them regarded Han Fei as an enemy. Some little fish were even wandering around Han Fei. Tempted, Han Fei was ready to fetch the pearl. However, a big black fish rushed closer, as if it were going to compete with him for it. Han Fei was rather angry. It was not easy to come down here, and you're competing with me. But Han Fei's complaint was soon gone. At the edge of the clam, countless sharp teeth appeared and tightened, biting the big black fish into halves frighteningly. Han Fei couldn't sweat right now, but his head was still dizzy. Is this a trap? What kind of clam has teeth? Han Fei looked at the smaller clams and the big clam and lost interest. No wonder it was named Ghost Blade Clam. Such a huge clam was indeed extraordinary. The undersea species were too weird. He saw certain creatures that looked like nails hopping close from far away like springs. Han Fei knew that they were nail conches that would poke nails at people when attacked. The fishermen had to be extra careful when they caught a nail conch, or they might be penetrated by the nails. Han Fei swam like a fish. He was not scared of the corals, which were unaggressive. He could also use the corals as his shield when in danger. Of course, he had to avoid the corners that he couldn't see clearly. God knew how many creatures were hiding there. Han Fei only wanted to find a rod, or whatever could be used as a rod. His first idea was to cut a coral, but he couldn't. He only managed to chop a small piece even after he poured his spiritual energy into his dagger. So hard. Han Fei's eyes glittered. He cut a long coral with his dagger. If it was made into a rod, it would be much better than an iron rod, although it still couldn't compare to the bamboo rod. A while later, Han Fei swam among the corals with a coral rod in his hand. He wondered how he could return to the surface of the ocean. He couldn't hold his breath much longer. Suddenly, Han Fei was stunned by a crimson tree that looked like a coral. Corals were in fact the dead bodies of certain insects. However, the crimson tree seemed much smoother than coral. Han Fei even saw a fruit on it.